I swear by my pretty floral bonnet that I will end you.
Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand.
Hey-o, that sounds like the intro to Firefly. Welcome, one and all.
That is the intro to Firefly.
Yes, to Joss Whedon's Firefly. I'll be the host for this, Crimson Maroon.
As always, I'm a geeky writer.
I'm a character called Sinister Boy.
And I'm Sprinks.
And as I mentioned, we're doing Firefly. And since this show's kind of large for our typical format, we will be splitting this into 2 parts. So we're covering the first 7 episodes in this video. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
We kind of have time constraints today. Hopefully we'll fit them all in.
One of the many reasons we are splitting this the 2 parts.
Yes. So I guess I'll just start with our usual history with the project. Start with you, writer.
Oh boy. Okay. So I'm in that group. I watched Firefly long ago when I was a youngin'. And I quite enjoyed it. And I think the most accurate summation of this show for me to this day is still, it is 13 hours of bliss and a lifetime of withdrawal. It is infamous for its cult following, deservedly so, I think. But my history for this one is in that it was an inspiration to me then. It's still an inspiration to me now. I made friends because of this show, and I've gotten jobs because of this show. One of my job interviews, one of the questions they asked me in order for me to get the job was, what is the best sci-fi series that never got a second season? And there was obviously only one answer to that question, and it's Firefly. And I landed a job. So I will pass this right along.
Sinister. No, I guess I'll go. No. I'll go. Think about it. My history, I also saw it when I was a young in 6th grade, about, if I remember correctly. And since then, I saw little bits and bobs when my dad was watching on TV, but never like full episodes or anything. And I saw the movie Serenity about that time as well, which was pretty good. It is unfortunate we never got a season 2, because it's a pretty good cast overall. Very enjoyable. Yeah, just childhood show that is fun to revisit for this podcast, because there's definitely character attributes that I don't remember so well from back then. That very apparent now. Yeah, that's my history. Now, Sinister. There you
go. I'm probably coming in with the least amount of familiarity with this. Probably my first exposure to this, I was at a Comic-Con years ago, and I went to a panel where they had, I think, they talked about Firefly. I don't know how, I don't know if the cast was there or not. I can't remember that, but and so that was kind of like my first sort of exposure, I guess, to that, and I didn't really think about it too much. And then it kind of popped up more often. It was on Netflix for a while, and kept thinking, you know what, at some point I'm going to watch it, and then I, just never did. And so finally, Crimson, was like, hey, there's this show. It's got 14 episodes. It's only got 1 season. And I was like, okay. And yeah, so watched it, and I'm surprised by how much I liked it.
That's good to hear. Sprinks, what about you?
My history of Firefly is I knew of it for a very long time, and by means, someone, how do I word this? Someone my family knew recommended it to us and let us borrow his copy of the season, and the only 2 people who watched it was myself and my mom, and we sat down and started it, and we got to episode 3 and finished episode 3, and then we looked at each other and turned it off because of how boring we both thought it was. And I had seen nothing since then, and that was probably when I was maybe 17, 16. So a good fair amount of time ago. Bringing it up now, start watching it. I enjoy it far more now because I think I have simply just matured to the understanding of what's going on. And I also feel that the popularity of things such as Guardians of the Galaxy and shoot, I had 2 examples. But like a ragtag group of individuals for storytelling was easier, had an easier understanding and grasp to me now.
Interesting.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. I can tell if you had more or not. So I guess I'll just spit out a couple things I saw when I researched, including why it was canceled. And the simple reason was it just had low ratings. So thank you, Fox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fox killing
Well, yeah,
shows
they-
as it does before they.
Yeah. They put it on
Back
like
in the early 2000s, they axed a lot of shows.
yeah, I believe it was they put it on like the Friday night slot, which supposedly for Fox was the death slot, and like
Yeah.
30 shows before Firefly come out had been canceled because they were on Friday night.
Precisely. The Alliance outfits, the Feds,
Mhm.
is recycled Starship Trooper
I
outfits.
knew
Yep.
it looked familiar.
Yep, that they
Yeah.
are. That was going through screenshots this morning. I'm like, huh. I wonder if, and then they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same feeling. I thought they looked familiar, and indeed they were. And I didn't realize this fact, but they released the episodes out of order when airing the
Yeah.
show.
Oh, you didn't know
That's a
that?
weird one.
Oh,
did not
yeah.
know that.
That one always pissed me off to this day. Just because that for me was an infamous knowledge right there.
Yeah, they premiered the second episode first, and then the pilot didn't come out until the last episode.
Yeah,
Which
and
I'm-
2 episodes didn't even air.
Yeah, 2 episodes
Initially. So crazy, wacky, really. I know,
Doom.
is that
from
the only show
start.
that's done that?
No.
That had its actual
No,
storyline?
there's a so there's this I showed you this Crimson Moral Oral, which is a Adult Swim stop motion, probably pretty infamous and famous Adult Swim show. They aired the final episode as the pilot because they were airing them around Christmas time, and the final episode took place on Christmas. But so after that, they aired them all the episodes before it, so like the first episode after the final episode. So it was really confusing because it just ends on this really like emotional like cliffhanger, and then you just go into like the regular stuff of like the first episode, and it doesn't make any sense.
Darn holiday specials ruin everything.
Yeah.
Darn Christmas ruining everything once again.
Yes.
was
Ruining
great.
things again, I see.
Yeah, I guess the last little bit I got is that Neil Patrick Harris almost got the role as Simon or Doc, as I kept
That
writing him in my
would not
notes.
have been.
I'm glad they didn't do that.
No, that would have been too much. That would have just been another Doogie Howser.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy that with where Simon is.
Yeah, I don't think he fits that role really at all.
I mean, he probably would have been okay, but I think he would have gone, I think, too comedic with it.
I think Neil
He-
Patrick Harris. I could see Neil Patrick Harris as Wash more than I could see
That's
him
what
as
I was
Simon.
about to say.
Yeah, I thought you were
Wash
going to
would
say
probably be the
Wash.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. But I could see him more as Wash than as the Doctor. But yeah, I think at that point in his career, I don't think Neil Patrick Harris would have been able to do the Doctor very well.
I mean,
What was
2002,
it?
was he even that big?
I'm trying to
I
think.
mean,
Was
Doogie
it right
Howser was
before-
huge. I mean,
Was that before or after Dr. Horrible Sin on Blog?
that was
It was
definitely
before
after.
that. What?
Okay, because
Was
it was,
No, Doctor Horrible was after that. Yeah, sorry, I was confused.
I forgot about Dr. Horrible. Oh my goodness.
yeah,
You
because
and the
that
rest of
was
the
Joss
world.
Whedon, if I remember,
Yeah,
with
that
Nathan
was
Fillion.
the Doctor Horrible was 2008. So yes, that would have been later.
You can tell because Nathan Fillion had some fat under the chin back then. It's weird seeing Nathan Fillion in Firefly as this fit young guy.
Yeah, he's
Not a dad
not
bod
really,
yet.
Yeah, he's not really a fit guy. He's never really
He
been a fit guy.
doesn't have the dad bod
No.
that he kind of has throughout all of his other properties that he's been in.
His dad bod.
That's the way I describe it because he's not fat.
Interesting thing though, Neil Patrick Harris was in Starship Troopers, so he had a connection there.
I guess there's a little part of him.
Yeah.
And there's also a bunch of references to like Star Wars and Alien in this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a Carbonite Han Solo in Kaylee's room.
What?
It's crazy.
It's all these hidden things.
Yeah.
It's almost as if the creator was a huge nerd.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed?
Who would have guessed?
We'll jump into the actual show now. So the
you
format
sure?
for this is we'll be covering each episode on its own and rating each episode on its own when we finish talking about it. We won't really discuss our ratings because that's what the discussion part is for. We'll just throw out our numbers and then move on to the next episode until we're through the 7. So would Sprinks want to start episode 1 with a popcorn point of his?
Sure. Let's start off a little scandalous with an Ara's sponge bath.
Yeah.
And why they would add freeze frames during it. It was an odd choice to me. I don't know if it was trying to set the tone of a more Western look, but it was weird that there were parts where it would just freeze frame to fade transition to like a different shot.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. They did some of that through these 7 episodes, and I think it was just a product of its time.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't see stuff like that nowadays on TV.
I noticed that they tend to do that in more Western settings. For the show, like when the lighting was darker, that's when they kind of went into that freeze frame thing. At least that's where I remember them most being used.
Yeah.
So you think it was a Western stylistic choice?
I think it's a product of it, both a product of its time. I'm thinking it's a bit of both. Genuinely, I do think that it's a Western stylistic choice. 1 and 2, it is a product of its time because that was typically how they tried to do some of those.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch like old like 50s westerns and stuff, they all kind of do the freeze frame thing when they transition, which looks really odd because they don't do that really in anything else anymore. But it's definitely an acquired taste, I think.
I think something that was more on the side of the time it came out was the handheld usage of the camera.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
I guess. I still feel like that's kind of prevalent today, though. Wow.
Yeah, it's
needs to be
It
said.
has a lot of interesting tracking shots with cranes and stuff when they're in the ship. There's a good variety of actual cam work in this.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
The time it came out of 2000s, it I guess was coming off of the time of set designs from I guess sitcom examples of the 90s is like Seinfeld and Friends of set stages, and I believe Firefly had set stages especially for Serenity, but the use of handheld in it is odd.
They actually made a to-scale ship for filming. They had 2 stages, the first floor and second floor. So it was actually a full-blown built project. It wasn't just like individual room sets.
And I do think that the show does benefit from that because it does feel like it feels like a lived-in space that way.
There is a shot in Serenity where they'll definitely utilize the fact that they did that.
I know what shot you're talking about.
Yes. So it is cool that they went that route instead of the typical room by room set. They just went all
I
out.
mean,
Went
I
all
think
out on it.
I don't really, well, because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I think Stargate SG-1, which is kind of a similar, I think it's a similar like shot kind of project. Also, it also used like hand camera, usually for like action sequences, not really so much for like tracking shots and stuff, but because it does kind of
Yeah.
give it more of a, an actual like an immediacy than if you just like had it on a still frame.
Yeah, they did that with, like we said, the 2000 stuff.
Yeah.
Stargate, Battlestar even has it. Sanctuary, all that
The
stuff.
shaky cam.
Yeah.
I do really, outside of the bad CG, which is mostly a nitpick and definitely a product of its time.
Yeah.
I do really like the opening.
Good.
It's pretty much, we get a very, very good grasp of Malcolm's character in a very, very terrible situation. And how he's still being himself, like he's very upbeat and cheery, even no matter how grim it is. I think it's a very, very sharp introduction to both his character and Zoe's.
I totally agree. I wrote in my notes, what a start.
Yeah.
That was the quickest jump to combat I think I've seen in anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty freaking drops you right in.
Pretty much, yeah. Drops you at a pivotal moment where the war is nearing its end, and I think it's a very, very good choice. Even with all the bad CG, you still at least understand, you have a good grasp with the characters going forward.
Yeah.
So
I liked how there was a good amount of practical with explosions and stuff as well.
Oh yeah.
that's true. Yeah, not
Totally,
not to just
CG like it would be today.
yeah. They did a good job for their low budget. It felt like a low budget anyway for that.
Yeah, I don't know what the budget of this show was.
I think it was
Sure,
pretty. I mean, just from the fact that they have like a double decker like full size ship set, it was probably pretty sizable.
Yeah, Joss Whedon just came off of Buffy. Well, actually,
yeah,
Buffy's
so-
still going on at this time, but
Well, yeah,
he's-
Buffy and
he's-
Angel are still
he's
going.
got brand recognition with his name, so he probably could have gotten him a budget.
You were gonna say something, Springs?
Well, that was just what was answered, was
Oh.
asking when was Buffy going on during the time of Firefly, and if Joss Whedon put more budget into those projects over Firefly to not loosen the quality of something already ongoing.
No, I don't. I think
They get separate budgets.
Yeah,
they wouldn't give him a
sometimes-
bunch of money and be like, make whatever shows you want, and be like, Buffy has a budget, Angel has a budget.
Was Buffy and
Firefly.
Firefly both done by the same producer
Like
or
Fox?
distribution company?
yeah, they were both
I think
Fox
so,
shows.
yeah.
Think, yeah.
Okay, that could lean more on the side of the money then.
Potentially. There would definitely be goodwill based off the success for sure.
Well, yeah, they would.
I
yeah.
think Buffy was Warner Bros, not Fox.
It was. He was right. Yeah.
Because Buffy
Definitely.
was CW, and CW is owned by Warner Bros.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Damn it.
Buffy was CW?
Yeah,
Well, technically,
Man,
yeah.
how the mighty have fallen.
right.
Jesus.
That's what I thought
That makes
too
you-
when I heard that.
If it makes you feel any better, it moved to UPN in the last season. So
I guess still going off this beginning bit. Poor
Mhm.
Bendis.
yeah, it was fun. It wasn't supposed to. I don't think it was supposed to be, but it was pretty funny that
He
just
got
standing there and
shot.
he just got riddled. He falls.
Yeah, it was kind of amusing as well.
And it's
They
odd-
They
shot
got like
only
the super serious violin music
Yeah.
going on as the bad guys just land everywhere.
Yeah.
And he
I,
gets
also,
riddled.
I just want to. I didn't think it was like the guys they were fighting that were landing. I thought it was like aliens, like they were getting contacted by aliens or something. And then I
It did
realized-
kind of
yeah.
look like that a little
Yeah,
bit.
because they just
with
look
the
so
lighting of the
shocked.
ships.
Yeah, they looked so shocked, and I was like, oh, they must,
Alien, third party.
aliens. Yeah, because that would end a war right there. Because you'd have a common threat. But no, yeah, it was. But yeah, that aside, I think it was well done how they just sort of they were building up this great moment of character of like, oh, we persevered. We're, everything's going to go our way. We've worked so hard for it. And then at the end, it's just like, no, sorry.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of play off that as well, more for Malcolm's character. You can see him kiss a cross at some point, which is very different from how he thinks about the religion the rest of the show.
Yeah. I wonder what changed his perspective.
We're going to find out, aren't we?
I mean, it was pretty much that scene there was what changed his mind.
Yeah.
He was all about God saving him in this moment, and then God spat in his face.
Well, he survived. Bendis didn't.
I'm sure that's a lesson he'll learn at some point in the latter half of the season. We'll see. Sinister, is there a point you want to bring up?
I did. You know what? Crimson has shown me a lot of older, or like late '90s, early 2000s shows, and I always forget that late '90s, early 2000s shows, and probably for a ways into the 2000s, the pilots are always like a full-length movie.
You got to establish your world and characters.
Yeah. Well, it's it's interesting because nowadays, like, the pilot is is usually, I mean, it is generally longer than most of the other episodes, but I think it's kind of become a little bit more common practice that it's kind of like, if you can't get across, I think, the amount of like character, the amount of story in what most episodes, like, you can have like an hour and a half long pilot, but then if like your main episodes after that are like 45 minutes, I think if you can't match that with the general length, which, to be fair, in this they do, I think they do match up. You get kind of the same amount, which I almost think like the hour and a half is almost like too much blubber, if that makes any sense. Because I feel like they've been able to do it with like 45 minutes. And I think that hour and a half...
This could have been trimmed down then?
Yeah, just a little bit. I think there's... Because there was definitely spots where I was kind of like, okay, I think they could really... I don't think this needs to... Granted, they set up a lot in this, so I'm not going to complain too much about the length, or saying that the length is unnecessary, because they did have a lot to set up. But I think this could have merited from some trimming, because most of the other episodes I didn't ever feel like they were like leaving something out, or and this one just kind of felt like, okay, I'm getting a little bit too much here.
Okay.
But
I could see through some people's eyes that it would be too long and boring, kind of like Sprink's initial feeling when he first saw it with his mother.
Yeah.
So I can see it. It is kind of a slower pilot because it is a lot of character work and interaction.
Well, it starts off pretty fast. So.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is true. They get the hook.
Yeah, there's a lot of action going on in like the first 5 minutes. So, but like I said, they're establishing a lot of characters, so it does feel like it's not unnecessary for it to be as long as it is. But I still think they probably could have trimmed maybe like 10 or 15 minutes out of it, and it might have ran a little bit smoother. But that's I think that's more of a personal opinion than an overall.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here trying to think of what I would cut out, and it's very difficult to think about what might be cut out. The first thing to come to my head was their meeting on Persephone with the mob boss. I think that was the only one that felt a little long. Yeah, Sterling. Yeah. That was the only one that's the only thing I could think of that I would probably either try to shorten or move along a little bit quicker, because I think otherwise there's too much character work being done for everything else. I
guess what I mean when I say like cut, not like cut out plot points and stuff, which I know you guys know that's not what I mean, but consolidate, because like the whole thing, whole thing with like Lawrence, really felt like it could have been much shorter. I don't want to overstay it because I'm sure we're gonna go into it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, we can cover Lawrence right now. Actually, I think it's a good segue.
Who
Where
here
it was kind
knew-
of obvious he was the
Yeah.
traitor because
Yeah.
he didn't get much screen time. He was kind of just present at
Mhm.
dinner and when they got on board.
I kept thinking that he was the guy who had sex with the companion in the beginning.
My father's
Oh.
wealthy, you know. He could set you up.
Yeah, I kept thinking it was the same guy.
Interesting.
I didn't think that.
I realized after, I was like, yeah, it's not him, but it looked similar enough where I was like, oh, you know what, that would be an interesting little plot point to have him join the crew and be like a kind of a triangle thing or something.
I love how Lawrence's character ended, though. That
It was
was
pretty perfect.
Yeah.
so satisfying. I
You
went
know
back
why
and
you
watched
like
that part 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
You know why you
So
like it?
Badass.
You know why you like it?
Yep.
Because you love that scene from Indiana Jones with the guy.
Yep.
It is similar.
It is very similar.
It's just like, it's just
It's-
sort of.
It's
over.
it's the same same reason why people always say Han shot first. It's such a very, very character establishing moment that's also just happens to be really badass.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can only agree. That was such a great moment.
And Lawrence, he is great at being dead. That whiplash to the head from the bullet, it's pretty good. I liked it. That guy's always a bad guy in everything he's in.
Yeah. Him and the
definitely gets typecast.
him and the merchant guy or whatever that they go to in Persephone, they're always bad guys.
Badger, but I'm just gonna call him
Badger.
Yeah.
Sterling.
Because he's from the X-Files.
He's in everything.
Yeah, he is. He's even in Doom
Leverage,
Patrol.
Supernatural.
He's
Yeah,
in Battlestar. You haven't gotten there yet, but
No.
Burn Notice.
I know he's in Star Trek somewhere too. I just don't remember where.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I mean, you got to have like an Irish guy,
Yeah.
or British. Or, you got to have an Irish or British guy in Star Trek at some point. I mean,
I do have one other thing to bring up.
Go on.
What do we all think about Malcolm Reynolds' prank on Doctor? About Kayleigh dying.
Kayleigh died. That was great.
That's a good one.
I loved it. It's such a like vicious joke that's harmless in the end. Because it's just
If I didn't already know that
Yeah.
Kayleigh was like a main cast member for the show, I could have believed that she died.
Yeah, I had a similar thing where I actually believed him, but I was like, wait, no, she was like totally fine.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I just really it really plays up the best attributes of Malcolm's character and Simon's, because Simon just is in full panic mode for a solid like 30 seconds as he's sprinting through the ship, and then he sees them and he just it's so great. I love that moment.
Yeah, they had a great moment where he brought up that he's psychotic, and then they jump to Wash saying that he's psychotic.
Yep.
Yeah, he's psychotic. The good kind of psychotic.
Yep.
Good guy. What was your guys' like favorite character that was in this episode? Or
Of this episode,
yeah,
it's probably going to be Malcolm for the first episode.
I'm in agreement with that. Because we didn't get too much from the other characters other than just like their base personality, but I feel like we got a lot of Malcolm in this.
Yeah. Well, we got enough for everyone to establish a base, but I think Malcolm's the only one that we got a clear picture of.
What about you, Springs?
Kind of in agreement with only going off the first episode that Malcolm's the only one you can really give a genuine answer to, because everyone else doesn't really have much screen time or characteristics shown.
Not yet, anyway.
I did like Wash's introduction.
Oh yeah.
But at least getting through more episodes, because I was talking to Crimson about it. Not giving away any, not like, oh, well, I gave this episode this or something, but it's just like, yeah, I like Wash, and he was like, well, get through some more episodes, and I did, and I don't know, I feel like they kind of underuse him in some of the episodes, but I'm not gonna talk about that yet.
Yeah, as of these first 7 episodes, Wash and Zoe are kind of on the back burner when it comes to character
Well,
stuff.
because they set up Zoe to be sort of like more in like the first episode, or like on par with Malcolm as far as screen time and everything, and then they just kind of don't really utilize her for like most of the rest of this first part.
A lot of Wash and Zoe's characterization is very subtle. I think it's there, but I do agree for the most part that they are on the back burner.
Mm-hmm. Which probably is one of my bigger gripes with the show. I feel like they, at least for this first set, I'm not going to say like the whole series because I'm not talking about that yet. But I do feel like this like sense of like I almost feel like there's like too many characters, and that they kind of suffer because like they're not that any of them are written badly, but there's like too many people, and they're all kind of vying for they all have they almost all have like a good enough story that could merit them kind of having their own like almost their own show or something. You know what I'm saying?
If this was the original 24
If they had a
episode
show with
season,
more than one season.
Yeah, that's that's a whole other can of worms. Yeah.
Apparently, the main cast this was supposed to be 5 characters, but later down the writing, more was added.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But
I don't know which the 5 were the core. Who was added later? But
I don't. Yeah, it's probably just like the crew, right?
I would
And
probably
then
guess I would probably guess Mal, Zoe, Wash, and Jane were the main 4, and then the 5th person was probably Doc.
I wonder what the plot would have been.
Oh no, wait, Kaylee. Sorry, I forgot about Kaylee.
Yeah, so I was gonna be like, I'm pretty sure Kaylee probably should have been in there, or it could have, like I said, it could have just been like freaking Mal, and then like the crew, the passengers,
Mm-hmm.
It's we'll probably never know, but
I'll throw this to Sprinks.
go.
Got another point?
I do. I had to go back and rewatch it 3 times to just make sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. It was so odd to me why, towards pretty much the end, when they blast the ship off to get away from the Reavers, why Wash is holding absolutely nothing in his hands. It was so wild to me.
I guess I didn't see that.
He's piloting the ship, and the camera pans to show him, and like Zoe's like hand on his shoulder, like way to go, you did it, and his hands are just out in front of him, touching nothing.
Look, they couldn't afford a steering wheel. Okay,
is this after
steering wheel later on?
Is this already when they pulled away, or is this during them pulling away?
This is right after the blast, and Jane starts cheering from the engine room.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's just really weird that Wash he just has his hands out in front of him.
Yeah, I guess that's just error on their part. I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
And I guess
Go ahead.
Another one to bring up more of a question somewhat is why would they leave their bay doors down open on Persephone when no one's like guarding their cargo or anything while they're out and about?
They're looking for passengers.
Well,
Kayla's advertising.
Yeah.
They're trying to get passengers.
On Persephone, yeah. Yes, that answer.
Okay. I'm just thinking, what if just like a ragtag group just, threw Kaylee out and took the ship?
I mean,
they're in a public space.
And there are Alliance soldiers literally right there. So that would cause a scene.
Wouldn't be very smart. That is when we get introduced to Book or Shepherd, however you want to call him. I
Preacher.
wrote Book.
I call him
Yeah,
Preacher.
his name was Book.
I just kept calling him Shepherd.
I call him Preacher.
Preacher.
Yeah, he's an interesting character in this.
Yeah.
I feel
just
like
a passenger who gets into a new life, essentially.
Yeah. I feel like he was definitely a victim of all the rewrites, because I think this is kind of spoilers for going ahead, but I felt like his character was the most jostled around, and like I don't know what they're trying to do with this character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want the peaceful priest, but he doesn't really have any storyline as of now.
Yeah.
He's just kind of helping other characters out. Yes.
Well, and they keep putting these like this breadcrumb trail of, well,
How do you know so much
What's
crime,
His
preacher?
past.
yeah, they keep using. I will say it's fine, to have mystery for a character. Like I'm not against that, but it is annoying that they keep using the exact same line every single time they bring up. He does something like, "How does a preacher know so much about crime?
Well, Dust
How
just
does a
delivered the
preacher
line
know-
so well. I mean, Jane.
Yeah. How does a preacher know so much about crime? How does a preacher know?" Said it like 3 times over like 7 episodes. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I guess speed round here since we're wrapping up episode 1. Ryder, got any more points? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, Crazy Ivan. I'm happy that they include an actual naval military term for when they did their quick turn of the ship when the Reavers were coming after them. Crazy Ivan is actually used by submarines.
The more you know.
Yeah. Well, you would know this, Crimson. I showed you Red October, the Hunter Red
Yes.
October.
But I don't remember words. I just remember the
Don't
scenes.
remember words.
I'm a bagpipe guy, as everyone
True.
should know by
True. Yeah.
now. Sinister, you got anything?
It was interesting, I guess, because obviously it's a Wild West sort of situation, so they kind of have to have some form of a brothel installed. How did you guys feel about the whole companion kind of a side note or companion thing is
It's
being
very interesting how they implemented it because they have like a power that they're well respected in society, which is the opposite of how it was
yeah.
In the real world. So it's interesting how they built the world kind of around that aspect. I'm glad they didn't go too on board on the sexual nature of it. They kind of take it pretty seriously with professionalism and stuff.
Yeah.
I like that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying something, Ryder?
I mean, I was just gonna. I was gonna say verbatim, like it's as a world building mechanic, I'm fine with it. It's the future, so any number of things could have happened, and it felt like a natural progression in a way. Like they're protected members of society, and so we have progress and avenues and stuff like that. So as a concept, yeah, I accepted it fairly easily.
Sprinks, you got any more points?
I guess I'll finish off with the point that I like that they know the usage of, or I like that they made the editorial decision that there's no noise in space.
I wrote that down.
Yeah, me
when
too.
They were getting the goods.
Yeah.
And that was some cool glue, thermal glue or whatever that was.
Thermal, the thermal.
They called it a sticky.
Sticky. Put the sticky on there.
Yes. I guess the last bit I'll throw in for this episode is the actual deal that was made with.
With the
patience.
patience.
Yeah.
Who didn't have much patience.
No, not a very good person.
But you knew she was in charge because she had the biggest tat.
Then Malcolm and Zoe and God, I always get his name wrong. I want to say Jace, but it's Jane.
Jane, Jane.
Just freaking gun him down, hardcore. And Malcolm's just cold-blooded with that horse.
Oh, absolutely.
Totally, I don't think it was necessary, but definitely sends a message to the audience what he cares about there. The money.
Yep.
The money. The platinum or something. They don't really go into like what
it was
the currency.
Food.
Well,
the actual currency.
Yeah, the actual. Yeah, I know that was.
Yeah,
they made it
look
like
really
it was gold bars. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote
protein.
it as Latinum for there.
Thank you. That's funny.
Probably spelled it wrong.
Yeah.
So we'll go into this episode's ratings if everyone's good to move on.
Yeah.
Okay. Ryder, what did you give the episode?
Like I said, it's very, very character heavy, which I like. My nitpicks of this first episode are very short, so it's going to be objectively, probably 8.5, and then subjectively, as with most episodes in this series, is going to be a 9.
All right, sweet. My objective is going to be 8, because it does a lot of good character work. There are some flaws here and there, but kind of covered. Stuff we didn't, obviously, with our time constraint, but I think 8's very fair. Get a solid B, objectively. Subjectively, it is kind of on the longer end and slower, but still enjoyable. So I think it's going to be an 8 for me for subjective as well. Sinister.
Just going off of a few. I mean, I'm not. We're gonna bring them up, but I don't think we're gonna tack them onto our scores too much, just because of the nature of how long ago this came out. So for any technical or aged special effects, it's probably unless it's really bad, it's probably not going to affect the overall score, I'm assuming. But yeah, I think overall this episode does a really good job of setting up the tone and the characters and sort of the world, which is pretty much all you want from a pilot. It is, I think, like I said, I do believe it's a little bit on the longer end. I think they might have been able to trim a little bit. I don't know if it would have, shaved off much time, but, a little bit. And with a few little issues, I'm going to give it an 8.
Right. And Springs.
First episode, pilot, objectively 6.5, subjectively matching 6.5.
All right, good. All right, on to episode 2, where I will start with a writer. What do you got?
Oh boy, I should be looking at my notes and not working on screenshots. Yeah, don't
doing one job and do the main job.
I'm working on it. Let's see. I'm actually going to talk about the narration. I think the narration's an excellent world builder.
Oh yeah, the narration.
I think it's simple outlines for. It's an outline of how the world is functioning and what their place in the world is. And if you're just jumping right in, I think it's a good. It gives you enough to know what to keep an eye out for. And otherwise, I think it's very on point, and it's a very strong way to start each episode. So.
This is the very beginning when they talk about the Earth bit and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which changes based on whether Mal is doing it or Shepard.
Yes, which Sprinks brought up to me yesterday asking if there was any relevance. I don't think there is. Did you guys find any relevance to that?
No. It seems like it's more Shepard than it's Mal so far. Like, I think they use, like, Shepard, like, 3 or 4 times, and then they only use, like, Mal's, like, twice, maybe 3. Yeah, I don't think it has anything really to do, or it doesn't, I don't think it might affect, if it does, I don't think that wouldn't surprise me too much, but it doesn't feel like it kind of impacts what the story would be like.
Right. I'll throw out something here. After the whole brawl at the bar, which we might cover, we'll see through the time here. Why is there a cliff right in front of this bar?
Yeah,
Dramatic effects so the ship can fly up, obviously.
That's a safety hazard.
I agree.
They went out the back door and not the front door.
Was that the back door? I'm pretty sure that was the front.
No, I'm gonna say that was the front door. Yeah.
I'm pretty darn sure.
I mean, people set up bars and stuff at the edges of cliffs and stuff all the time.
really a thing?
I don't think so, especially with the entrance, anyways.
Yeah, that one, it's a little odd, but
there's no railing. Oh,
what do you want to put, like, a freaking glass, like, floor over there so you can walk over it and be scared?
Crimson,
yeah, where's my red carpet?
It says OSHA.
Yeah, you don't know. Maybe. Especially for the outer planets.
Yeah, this is an outer planet.
I do like
railings.
I do like that they kind of set up or how they, you know,
They
how they
got
kind
the
of
post tool.
yeah, they
What's
do
called?
the post what do they call it? The post post polar or something, or
Something along those lines.
yeah, it was funny. But no, I like that they kind of, because I was a little hesitant about, you know, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like this show or not. It was a sci-fi western, which is immediately made me think of cowboys versus aliens, and I was a little like, I don't know about this, but I like that, you know, it's kind of, I'm not gonna say it's like Star Wars in this way, but you know, because you compare anything to Star Wars, and then immediately it's like, oh, well, it doesn't really follow that, so you know, it's obviously worse, which fair, but um, I it was like my favorite thing about Star Wars was kind of in the post Empire kind of world where it was sort of like the Wild West again. And I think this follows a similar thing where they have like all these settlements, and basically the government was just like, well, we'll give you this, this, and this, and then everything else is up to you. And
Get
so
what you get, and you don't throw a fit.
and so of course there's going to be you know, food shortages, there's going to be lawlessness because everybody's going to want their share and everything, so it makes sense that it would be kind of like the Wild West. I don't think there'd be like freaking like cowboy outfits and stuff necessarily, but
They got sent back to primitive times.
yeah, well, but I guess that would make sense though, because
They
obviously,
get
you
all
know,
their clothes from animals.
well, yeah, well, and also like you would kind of have this, because they would all be fairly self-contained, especially because if they were set up to be settlements, they wouldn't necessarily give them like ships to fly away, you know, and not set up their settlement. So they're all fairly self-contained. So they probably would, after, you know, several hundred years, kind of have this cultural reset where everything would sort of go back to like how it would be like, you know, 1,000 years before or something.
I like the show's take on sci-fi because it's definitely not focused on like space battles and laser
Yeah.
guns, and I mean,
It's a very rustic
in the first
feeling.
episode with Kaylee getting shot, which was cool and
It was so
unexpected.
cool.
There was no like advanced medical stuff. It's just like standard sewing up and whatnot.
Hmm.
So I liked that aspect.
It's a very rustic
There are
sci-fi.
advancements. There are advancements,
Yes.
but yeah, they're not like, yeah, it's
Well,
not
yeah,
like,
there's spaceships and stuff.
yeah, well, no, I mean, but like, yeah,
There's
like
nothing crazy.
yeah, it's not like a Star Wars where there's like robots that like pump you up and give you like protein surgery or something. But
The weirdest thing is having a pool table hologram. Kind of
that one was a little, yeah. I was that when I saw that I was like, that that seems like too much.
Out of anything to get a hologram, they do a pool table where they can just make polished rock sprinks. You got a point for episode 2.
I really like that when they're all in the infirmary looking over what to do. River on the table has a flickering light above her when she speaks. Gives her more of a mysterious
didn't talk about
eeriness
that.
to her.
Yeah, so we didn't cover River.
Is a big part.
I think they've done a pretty good job with River and her craziness and mysteriousness in these earlier episodes.
But just not talking about her at all.
Yeah, let's cover this. Let's cut that out. No more River talk.
No, you know what? I don't know.
Yes.
They just so far she only got like really one episode in these first 7 that was like about her. I don't know. I'm sure there's like later ones are she's more prevalent, but it seemed kind of weird because it seemed like they set her up for a lot more in these earlier episodes.
There is setup. I'll say that.
No, I know. Okay, yeah. Like I know in the next, you know, part, I know enough about the show where I can be like, yeah, I know it's going to be a bigger thing. But it just felt weird that like you'd have like 7 episodes for this character, and then there would only really be like one episode that kind of had much to do with her. But I know it's all going to be worth it in the end. But yeah, it's an interesting thing.
I'll bring up Niska, their boss for this episode.
Did you like this
their
guy?
employer. He's got a pretty good introduction. Malcolm, you got good reputation, but I'll prove to you I live up to mine.
The question is,
those
will you
my,
live up to
uh,
hang
yours?
in there.
what was it? It was his wife's nephew
Uh,
or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, his wife's.
he was annoying at the dinner table or something.
Yeah, she'll be really cross with me, but I'll be okay.
Yeah, so I liked him. I wish we actually got to see his reaction at the end of the episode, because we
Yeah,
were built up that he was this bad guy. He might come back later, for all I know. We'll see. But from that initial introduction, I thought he was going to be like the big bad at the end, even though the ending with his lackey Crow was
that was
pretty awesome as well.
Yeah.
Back-to-back episodes with awesome bad guy killing.
Yep, pretty much.
So yeah, Niska, good introduction. I don't think they followed through with him as a threat by the end, but decent.
You don't know. They're gonna have like a whole. They're gonna have like a whole episode where everybody they've ever wronged come back and.
Yeah, that they didn't shoot in the head or kick into a turbine.
Yeah, which it. How do you feel about like because it is kind of prevalent, I guess, where they kill some people but they don't kill others.
Okay, I guess I'll take it.
Well,
Why
I
do you
guess,
take it?
Okay.
no,
Well,
I mean, okay, let me explain. Like, okay, so in like the first episode, Mal is like, "I'm gonna kill this like federal officer or whatever," and then they talk about it a little bit, and he's like, "Okay, I'm not gonna do that. It would be too much hassle or whatever." And then he just at the very end, just like a quick kills him, and that's it.
yeah. Well, he's pointing a
really-
gun at someone on his ship, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but he was already doing that before, and he actually shot somebody.
Well, I feel
Well,
like
the first
they-
time they didn't kill him is because they wanted to question him first. They needed to know if he got information out.
Okay, that's fair.
yeah, I definitely feel like they're not afraid to kill off people in this.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying it's like, oh, it doesn't really make any sense. But I'm just curious. It seems like there's this almost. Sometimes they, it's like if like the same person, it feels like sometimes does like, or if one person does like the same thing as somebody else that got killed, they don't necessarily get killed, but the other guy did get killed, or
I think most of his killings are very contextual.
okay.
I think because I guess my example, I'm going to use Patience as an example of why Patience wasn't killed. Is they would rather negotiate with her because now they have power over her. At least that's the impression that I get. They always get paid for their job, and by any means necessary, just don't fuck with us in that sense. But there's also the aspect of where I think if someone does cross a line and they can afford to do so, they will absolutely kill them. I think that's where most of the context for those typically tend to go. Like Mal doesn't kill the second one because the second, like in this episode, Malgo doesn't kill the second guy because because he's willing to do what he asked.
Yeah,
So,
obviously,
good for all of us. It's pretty good. Ryder, you got a point?
Let's see. Outside of the killing at the end that I really like, I kind of like that this episode is all about context, really, for Zoe and Mal. So they stole goods off a train from this town that was full of medical supplies, and when they learn what it is, you can see the guilt slowly growing over the course of the episode.
Really test their moral compass.
Yeah. Like, are we still willing to go through with this? And Mal ultimately isn't, and I don't think Zoe is either. So, I genuinely kind of like that because context always brings more to the forefront from your average thief character. Like, where this is good establishing a moral baseline for how these smugglers operate. Like, there is a point where they will not go through with the job. And I like that. It adds a lot of context.
And in terms of that, I really liked the sheriff in this.
Yeah.
What a level-headed, nice guy.
Yeah, he wasn't an idiot, and he was actually pretty decent.
Well, yeah, he did 2 background checks on Inara and stuff, double checking her story and stuff when she
Well,
picked
he
them
didn't.
up.
He
Well,
didn't.
he told someone to do it.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
the same thing.
It's yeah.
So he actually did his job. He's competent, and
He actually did more of a job than the people who were supposed to be doing the job, which was
the alliance,
the alliance. Yeah,
the feds.
they're just like, oh, it's some medicine that doesn't involve us. Who cares?
Sprinks, do you need anything?
More for episode 2.
Yes.
No, episode 4.
In the train, I was curious how loud the train was because Malcolm was able to talk to Zoe without necessarily screaming or yelling at her, so it made me curious how loud gunshots are. Because they fired off a gun and no one came to investigate? Or was
they were... The Alliance were in car 2, right? And the goods were in car 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took them a while to get there, but they were on their way.
So three car gap. Well, three cars, including them. So it is interesting because it doesn't look like a quiet train. It's definitely no bullet train. It could have been pretty loud. There's livestock in there as well, as we saw with the family, and there was a chicken and stuff. So I think it's possible a bullet could have been misheard. What I found a little weird was that a ship was flying right next to them and above them, and no one realizes it.
That one is a little harder to get past. I mean, they are raiding from the cargo train, so there's not really people in that specific truck, but still, someone could just look out a window and spot it. I like that Doc drugs Jane.
Yes.
That is a very smart move, because even Doc gets that Jane's a little bit on the unstable side. And
I'm the captain now.
Yeah, pretty much. And I like that that he drugged him, because they say it saves him the problem, and it's still even drugged at the very end of the fight, he still is contributing a little bit.
I did like. I like how he was, or the doctor had been around Jane pretty much the least, along with most of the rest of the new people, and still knew how he wasn't the most soundest of person.
It's very, yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, if this guy becomes captain, it's gonna be a problem.
Jane's got one of my favorite lines in the show right here. You know what the chain of command is? It's the chain I beat you with until you understand who's in command here. That's hilarious.
That's a good one.
I love it. And then he face plants.
Yeah, and then he
concussed himself or something.
I did like how he acted when he got all drunk.
Doped.
All drugged up. It was really and boom, pratfall. Trying to think if there's anything else in this episode that
I'll throw in. How do you guys feel about the fight choreography here?
Not great.
Yeah, with the goons at the end.
Yeah, no.
It's not great. I mean, like, it's definitely better than Star Trek at its worst, but
that kind of is an easy feat. I think we could do that.
Yeah, like I said,
Star Trek.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, I got enough to get the point across. I still think there's some things that definitely could have been cleaned up for it. I don't think it's great,
very
though.
Acty. Like, it didn't feel like there were actual punches. It felt slow.
Yeah.
The camera was shaky at times where I don't think it needed to be. It was pretty sloppy.
I mean, it's not great. I think, and I would say that it's mainly like just early 2000s, fight scene.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's just kind of
it felt like early 2000s TV show budget fights, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, unfortunately, that's how a lot of them look like.
I love that Crow just threw his weapon at Malcolm immediately.
Yeah.
Once negotiations weren't panning out.
Yep.
And would you have done the exact same thing?
I probably would have shot him instead of throwing a knife at him, but
I think
I'll take that throwing knife
over nothing. Yeah.
A A lot of knives getting thrown into shoulders in this show.
I should point out too that his knife was
I
already
like that
drawn.
people get hurt in this.
Yeah. I think his knife was already drawn, which is why he did that over the gun.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. It was.
He was holding it. While his other goons were holding guns.
He brought a knife to a gunfight.
Essentially.
Yeah.
But that could be his signature weapon. He's kind of a famous brute, I suppose. At least that was the feeling I got off of him from the introduction of him.
Yeah, I guess because they knew
He's
he
the
was
guy who watches the door.
That's the guy who watches the door.
Boo.
That's the guy who watches the door. Who watches the door.
He's the guy we sent to kill the boogeyman.
Yeah. So like we said earlier, this was like the first episode that aired, and I guess this is there's enough in this where I think you could kind of grab people, but it still feels weird that
That's the studio's fault.
Like a pilot.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all feel like a pilot because there's a whole bunch of stuff that you're just gonna walk in and be like, why is this girl crazy? Why is this guy like a wuss or a bad guy or something?
Yeah. The studio fucking up once again.
Fox screwing up once again. Catch our compilation video over 10 hours.
All right. Brinks, any last points here?
Yes. There was an error I found of when they were going to give back the crates of medical back to the town, and the whole crew is kind of in the cargo hold. There's a shot of Wash kind of asking for clarification of the back of the bay door to him, and then they cut to different angles, which I guess is them walking around, because then it cuts to Wash again, and the background is different, so he's moved, because now he's looking out the bay doors of Crow and the rest of the goons walking in.
You've lost me.
I'm not confused with them walking around in the cargo to figure out what Malcolm and Zoe are doing. I'm confused who opened the bay doors when all the crew is standing there.
Exterior button. I don't know.
I guess so. I know they don't have...
There probably is an exterior.
There probably is,
or
yeah.
something.
I imagine that Malcolm and Zoe would know how to do that.
Yeah, somebody would know.
Okay.
Who knows? Not me.
Not enough to say definitively, but I think conceptually, I think it's feasible. Something could happen.
Okay, because I know they don't have... At least Wash's recon has only been on ships and thermals and radiation so far, and hasn't been on, I guess, body warmth or anything of anyone near the ship. So they wouldn't know that Crow and his goons were there from inside the ship, I guess. So that was fine. But I don't know who lowered the door.
You know who would know?
God.
I don't know. I don't even think Josh would know.
He would. He's the George Lucas of this. Who shot first, Han or who opened the top bay door?
Han or Malcolm?
Yeah.
Anyone else got anything else before we go to our ratings of this episode?
I will say, I do like, and I kind of wish they kind of did it a little bit more in some of the later, or the other parts of this, first half. Kind of getting a glimpse into, like, how the Alliance affects, like, settlements and, regular kind of settlement planets and stuff. Because it is a cool thing in this that, because it does set, like, this tone of kind of, in, like, the best, even the best of, like, intentioned governments and stuff can fail, and especially in this situation where, like, oh, well, we have a unified force over all these planets, but it really doesn't do anything because it doesn't really care about the individual planets and stuff. So it really wouldn't matter if it was a government or not, because they're still basically on their own. And I kind of wish they would have, and I'm sure they'll follow that in in the second half of this series, but I would have liked to have seen more of kind of this sort of setup in other episodes.
I guess I suppose, because we've been told that the outer planets just don't get much attention at all, so I don't know what type of presence the Alliance really have there, other than just recognition of what the Alliance is.
Or
That's why there's
the
a whole bunch of
occasional
these
patrol.
cruddy planets that we keep seeing.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't need like, oh, well, there has to be like a some, but I like that they even have like a thing like, yeah, we're an Alliance planet, but we really don't like, we really don't get much for that other than this shipment of medicine every so often. Which was, an interesting way to sort of, I guess, show kind of the difference between. One, it's set up cool. I think it's set up really cool in the beginning because you have Malcolm getting in that bar fight with that Alliance guy, and then I don't know if I like the. I don't know if I like. Yeah, I don't know if I like the name of his independence, which is Brown Coat. Seems a little.
Well,
silly.
I mean, it's just kind of the way that we called the British the Redcoats.
Yeah. No, I get the sentiment. It was just like brown coats, so they like were cowards because they shit their pants or something. I don't. But it's just not a flattering name. But I understand. I get it.
Right.
So it was. I like that they set it up.
All right, we'll go into ratings now. Number, short, concise, or just numbers. Your decision,
Okay.
Writer.
Give this one an 8, objectively, and again 9 subjectively.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll give this one a 7.5, objectively, just for the bad guy element, and then subjectively I give it an 8. Sinister.
I'm gonna give this one an 8 overall. Yeah, there's not really much, I think, at fault here.
All right, and Springs.
Objectively 6.5, subjectively 7.
Okay. And on to episode 3. And well, Sinister, I'll start with you this time.
Oh, me? I get first crack.
Yeah, you get to pick the best scene in this.
I get to pick the best scene. Or
talking point.
or talking point. Okay, so I will say, even though I liked this, I got into the show fairly well in the first 2 episodes. This is kind of my favorite part of sci-fi, which thanks in part to Alien. I like when they go on derelict ships and shit goes wrong. So this was probably the moment where I was like, okay, this is gonna be a pretty good show because I love that whole setup.
Yeah, any sci-fi show that has abandoned ships, investigated. There's always so much potential, and it's always got an eerie start typically.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they dived into it as well.
Yeah, because I was like, because especially like me and Crimson on our off times, we watch X-Files, and we found like the best episodes are the ones where they get stranded somewhere. And I love stranded episodes, which is kind of like, this is not really stranded, but you know what I mean. Like, this is like as close to probably stranded as you're gonna get most of the time.
It's isolated. They're
Isolated.
also stuck there because of the trap. So
yeah. And I like a lot of what they did, and I especially like that they kind of set up Reavers a little bit more because they mention them, in like the first part, but we really didn't get to see much of like how they interacted with other parts of society.
Yeah, only that all the bedtime stories are true.
Yeah, all the they'll. I can't remember the exact list that Zoe says, but it's a pretty good line.
They'll steal your ship, rape you, skin you, and sew your skin into their clothing.
Yeah,
and eat
if
you.
We're lucky.
And eat you. Yes.
And in that order.
Hopefully in that order.
Yeah.
In order.
And so we get to come upon a ship that, and I kept thinking that it was going to be some sort of like disease, or we're finally going to get like an alien life form, and then it was more grounded, and it was actually, I think, like scarier that it was so grounded because it was like more believable because it's a Reaver attack ship with one survivor.
Who kind of turns into a Reaver, which
Yeah,
I'll
you know,
bring that up as a talking point.
yeah, go for it.
Do you think that because Reavers we've established are just people, depending on who you ask, anyways. They are
they're
human.
Yeah.
So, do you think this is how kind of Reavers are born? They're just survivors of crazy stuff, or how do you think one becomes a Reaver?
I'm gonna let Sprinks take that one first.
I think this is one way a Reaver could be formed. I don't think it's the sole only way that they can be formed. I think just being uncivilized and away from civilization, of being wild, and the overwhelmness of quote unquote being free, I think messes with the mind of, as they say, the mind of men, turning them into things that aren't men.
Yeah. For what is civilization but the conspiracy for all of us to work together?
Nice.
Lovely words. Yeah, I think I'm kind of in agreement. It's sort of they're with the Reavers. I get that it's like they're human in the same way that like all like the savages in Mad Max are human, right? I mean, they're still like human, but they're monsters because they're choosing the chaos and the lack of morality over any sort of order. Which I guess so, because the whole point of like, or like I think a large portion of the show is kind of portraying. So Malcolm and his crew are essentially lawless, but they have morals, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Alliance is all laws, but they lack the morals because they're not involved in anything.
At the ground level.
And then you have the Reavers who lack morals and are lawless. So it's kind of like this, like, you know, I guess showing like all the factions, and yeah, and granted, there's like, you know, other bad guys that, you know, they deal with that are probably in, you know, in between all, you know, those three sort of phases, but it's interesting to show like, okay, well, Malcolm, if, you know, if they like became any more like outside of their boundaries, could be like the Reavers. And the same thing with an Alliance. If they didn't have like all their laws, they could be, you know, no different. So it's interesting, I guess, like dividing line between like kind of like, I guess, the three main points of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Writer, Kyle?
I guess I think this is would the Reavers be fairy tales to the Alliance?
That's it. Well, because they don't believe in it. They don't think Reavers
that's
is real.
the thing. They don't think they're real. That's
folklore or something.
Yeah, they just assume it's folklore, and I'm not sure. I think that's a flaw at this point. If the Reavers are as widespread as they're claimed to be on the outskirts, and we know the Alliance patrol at least all the way even in the outsystems, I do think they would know that the Reavers are real. I think I do think this is a bit of a problem with this episode, and that's one of my major issues with it. Otherwise, I do think everything else on the ground is very good. I do think they could have tweaked it, like maybe the officer in charge doesn't believe in it, and it's just the officer. But because they come across as they don't believe in it, until, you know, he starts killing
face to face with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I could think to work around that is the Reavers just don't leave any survivors. So any Alliance forces that would come across one would just get taken out and not reveal anything.
Well, then
therefore,
if an Alliance,
it could just be some outside force.
Well, if an Alliance comes across a derelict ship, they would see all the bodies.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a particular faction, even if there's a pattern, right? Because it's not hard proof; it's just evidence.
I took it so, like, when, you know, the Alliance was like, "Oh, those are fairy tales and everything." I took it more as kind of trying to portray them like they're controlling. They're supposed to be like this over, you know, overarching control over the system, but they really don't have really kind of any and I mean, I'm agreeing with Ryder in that it is it's a little bit too much where it kind of jeopardizes their actual their arc as kind of being this big baddie in the kind of the background, but they're they're so only kind of involved with like the major settlements, which are like the planets like with the Simon and the Doctor are from, that are these major metropolises, which I'm sure are like the government sanctioned ones and not just like the settlements that regular everyday humans went to. That they do just kind of have these blind spots of all these problems, whether they're actual like blind spots because they just don't care, or they're blind spots and that it's something that they just don't really need to know about, which would be even weirder. But it does show it kind of emphasizes that, okay, these guys would be like the textbook definition of good guys, but obviously they're not actually paying attention to what's happening here. So I don't know. I still agree with Ryder though, in that it is sort of an oversight to just give them no really knowledge of them at all.
Yeah, I mean, like, because they try to pin it on Malcolm's crew.
Yeah, that was so weird. I was like, I just thought they were trying. It was like like you get pulled over and like, I found this marijuana in your glove compartment.
There's an avenue of where I can see them being in denial about it, but they don't really explore that either. It's just that they don't know. So that's my big world building issue with this. But I can kind of use that as to transition to something I like. I really love the interrogation scenes.
That was going to be my point I was going to bring up.
Well, I'll transfer it right to you then. Go right ahead.
No, if you got something to say about it, go ahead.
I mean, I love the juxtaposition between Zoe and Wash, for one. I think just the interrogator being silent for most of the time, and seeing how every character interacts with that is really great. Because Wash just goes on and on about Zoe, because Wash's
legs.
Yes, and like I said, I did smirk because it's very in character, but I love just how everyone interacts with him differently.
Yes, all their interactions were quite enjoyable.
Yeah, and they all felt very much in character for each of them.
Yep.
Yeah, Jane just sitting there.
Yeah, were they going through all his guns and his weapons and everything?
It's pretty good. During their rip up of the ship, I guess, looking for fugitives, I wrote down, so they're checking under plates to see if there's siblings under the plates. They were checking every little object, and I think it's kind of funny.
I think they were just looking for evidence.
The placemats on that table, let's just flip those around and throw them all in place. They may have been under the table mats.
So why did they? Okay, this was something that so they put the Simon and River are out outside of the ship, and why did they have to take out like the supplies from the Nook?
I assumed it was just to help placate the fact that they are trying not to hide anything. Because if they did try to hide them, the Alliance would have just grown more suspicious if they found them.
Because when I saw them like moving them out of like the Nook and everything, I was like, oh, they're gonna hide them in there, and then get rid of like the so because it's like, oh well, they're more of a problem that gets found than stuff. So.
Yeah, if they got found with nothing, that would be more suspicious than catching them in the act of looting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure that's what they were doing. I think Malcolm kind of explicitly says that. I also thought they were going to hide him in that cubby, but fine with them being out in space, because that Fed definitely knew his stuff regarding Fireflies, anyways.
Firefly class vessels, yes.
Yes. So they probably would have found that compartment. We don't see them open that compartment, which I think would have been nice.
Yeah, I think it would have been a nice touch, but there's a lot of dialogue to support that they would have found it anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah, because there were like lots of nooks and crannies in these old ones.
Favored by smugglers.
Favored by smugglers. Are you a smuggler?
Sprinks, got something?
Let's see, what hasn't been touched?
A lot.
Well, I like. Let's go with something I like. I like the eeriness of the ship with all the children's toys.
I'm sorry, that was already touched on. No, I'm kidding. You're good.
Especially the one hallway scene with a red balloon, which to me was a reference to it.
Oh yeah, that could
what?
be. That could have been. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pretty much the only color in that one shot was a red balloon.
Or, since River referred to the ship as a ghost ship, that could have been a reference to the Sixth Sense and red signifying there's a ghost around.
You know, true.
The ghost of a man.
There's a red balloon in that too.
Or it could have been a reference to the famous film The Red
The
Balloon.
Red Balloon, which
Yes.
I have on DVD.
Yes.
Back when movies were short.
You mean
yeah.
long?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, it was good vibe on that ship, as I brought up earlier with these ghost ships. Because the Enterprise does a good job there. Star Trek Enterprise.
Star Trek, yeah. Make sure you go. Yeah, gotta make sure.
Specifically, has some pretty good like eerie ship moments, and other Star Treks too as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more familiar with Enterprise.
Yeah, I like. It's something, you know. It's a hard thing because I always wanted like an Alien, like Alien the movie, like show. But the problem would be that like inherently with Alien, it doesn't really fit. If you did it like the same thing like every week, where you go on a different ship or something, it would get boring. It would get old because it would just be the same shtick over and over again.
Challenge accepted.
So yeah. Well, I know
it would be hard because it'd have to be the focus is like the alien is the goal of the show and not the premise of the show. Right?
Yeah,
where
that's
someone's trying to find it or something along those lines.
Yeah, and like you could do it, but it wouldn't be. You would have to do it in a way that it wouldn't like focus on what I like most about like the movie and stuff, which is the creepy, you know.
I think we could I think you could extrapolate this out a little bit more and to make it a more mystery sci-fi.
Yeah.
So like there can be obviously the alien episode, but I mean, you know, exploring derelict ships for mystery, like you're exploring murder scenes, like ships docked in your harbor or something like that. I can see an avenue for this.
There's some, but I really like it when, you know, a show kind of does this sort of thing that can be kind of somewhat self-contained and it doesn't really have to be like the main point of like the series or something, I guess. So I have a very strong soft spot for these kind of episodes, and so I enjoyed this one a lot.
I have a question for Sprinks.
Oh.
What do you think is up with River? Because we get her sensing things here pretty heavily. She could sense when the crazy guy was on the ship. We see in other episodes she is also connected to other characters as well when they're in peril. So what's going on with her? What do you think?
This point in the show, on episode 3, without the other 4, I thought that because Simon continually says that she has such a gifted, smart brain and was far smarter than him, that when she went to the school, or I guess the academy, that her parents thought was totally fine, but this big experimentation thing, I think what they do is they take highly intelligent minds that they think are closer possibility to get to enhance closer than taking a low intelligence mind that would need more to get to where they want. And I think the outcome so far has probably been mind reading or future scene, but I don't necessarily think the academy that River went to knew the outcome of what they were going for.
I think it's kind of like an X-Men thing. Where they're trying to trigger abilities and all that stuff.
Could be.
With,
Maybe. Yeah.
A very, very bad, big college scam. This is what that is.
Yeah, it
It
is
is a
interesting that, like, at least from what we've heard of this place, it seems like it would be something that you could pretty quickly realize was something wrong, but you never know.
And I imagine they started slowly.
Oh yeah, well yeah, at least like because from what Simon says, like yeah, you got a few letters like the first few weeks or months or whatever, and then just nothing for like 2 years. That seems like that would be like the drop off where it'd be like, okay, maybe this school isn't so great, but you never know.
I guess an observation. Oh,
no,
go ahead.
you first. I got.
Okay, just a quick little observation. I noticed that the suits kind of look like samurai get up, and the show seems to really like Chinese iconography and just language because they speak Chinese.
Yeah,
intermediate.
Pretty frequently as bilingual.
Yeah. Well, because
it's an interesting choice.
Because supposedly the alliance is. The alliance, was the remnants of America and China, I believe.
Yeah, the alliance flag is a combination of the Chinese and American flag.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting choice for sure, and it's also a workaround that they can curse in the show.
Yeah,
as long as it's in Chinese.
Yeah, which I like. I really like that Malcolm delegates his crew to different tasks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like he doesn't tell the people who he knows might freak out about the fact that they have a bomb attached to their ship, and then he tells the people who can help him with that job specifically. So like both crews he delegates his crew like and that's kind of it's a very subtle way to show his leadership skills. In that like he doesn't tell the preacher about the bomb attached to their ship and people who aren't involved with that specific task, because like Doc needs to be focused on what he's doing and not worrying about the bomb attached to their ship. So
yeah, he's pretty smart on that aspect. I really wish in regards to Shepard, I wish we saw his reaction when he went on the ship, because he was advocating for like these are still men.
Yeah.
And it would have been great to see his reaction.
Okay, that was one last thing that I have.
Okay.
So Malcolm goes through this whole thing of like, I've with the survivor guy, he's like, I know what's happening here. We can't do anything for him. And then Shepard is heavily like he's still human. He's fine and And then, so they take the sole survivor onto the Alliance ship or whatever, and he kills like all those people, right?
Yep.
So technically, Shepard killed like 5 or 10 people. Yeah.
There's definitely a few.
Technically.
There's definitely a few. Technically. There's definitely a few scenes like this is one of those episodes where I definitely wish we had a bit more of Shepard, and this is why I say he's a very disjointed character. Because there's so much you can do with him, especially with the argument that he makes for this person that they've rescued. Like, and I would have liked to see the bodies as well, because like his reaction to the bodies. Sorry,
because you don't want bodies hit the floor. Because it would have been interesting how he, because I think it's very easy to just be like, oh well, in my religion or my reading, it says this, which is not saying that's wrong, but then when you kind of encounter actual human horror, it really makes you kind of double, think twice about, well, what are we truly capable of?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I got for this episode. It was a good episode.
Yeah, they could have made it where he questioned his morality, I guess, towards these things.
See, I think that's like
he could have not shown any reaction, showing more of his questionable past without blurting out, "You have a questionable past."
Yeah.
So there's a couple evidence they could have shown.
It's definitely hard. I don't think I have a definitive answer because I think it's necessary for him to not kind of he has to keep his faith because everybody else doesn't have one.
I mean, that's all he has right now.
Yeah, I know
As a
that's like,
character.
yeah, that's. I mean, so he has to have that. So I don't know if him questioning it would make me, be more into it. I'm not sure.
Well, not
but,
questioning faith, just people.
Yeah, I feel like he does, and I mean, we see through I think other episodes that he does sort of grow into more of a, like okay, there is a definitive here where you can't just talk your way out of any situation or conflict. You have to sometimes actually engage. So.
He talked to was it River about Malcolm shooting Lawrence. He talked to someone about it.
He was like,
he was in Nara. He talked to.
Yeah, it was like I've been here 1 day or 2 days, and I've already beaten somebody up and seen somebody else get shot in the head.
And I'm not sure if I disagree with that or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I just
some stuff.
Okay, yeah, okay, all right.
Sprinks, do you have a final thought for this episode?
Yeah, I don't think it's been touched on yet, but man, does Book have some energy during the beginning. For his age, wow, he can during the game
ball or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I called it hoop ball.
Yeah.
Hoopla.
Yeah, I love.
He's the least in shape person there.
Yeah, I love the hoopla scene because life on board the ship can get boring. I think it's a very nice slice of life moment on the ship.
Yeah. It's and it's especially weird because of what follows after this.
Yeah. It's a good juxtaposition.
Yeah. So
I
do you
like
think
that River and Simon were watching and everything?
Yeah, and River was
Simon doesn't even know the rules.
Yeah. So it's like it is supposed to be like basketball, but like some descendant version where they don't really know what basketball is anymore, kind of thing.
I suppose, except there's no resetting or anything.
Yeah.
I thought of it kind of like
that.
The sports game played in, I don't know if it was an actual historical game, but the sports game played in Road to El Dorado with the hoop down on the wall.
Well, that is basketball, basically. But, yeah. It's...
Possibly.
I'm going to look that up. Aztec basketball.
Yeah. My only last thing for the episode is probably River's spacewalk. Really like the kind of just her wonder, the wonder on her expression when she's looking out of space.
The game that it was called before it was called basketball was Alam Malatizli. I'm definitely mispronouncing that, but the game was played by trying to put a solid rubber ball through a stone ring placed high at the end of the court. Unlike today, they had no rules. So I guess it's more similar to that than basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts for this episode before ratings?
No. I think I got all my stuff out.
All right, the writer.
Objective is going to be 8. Subjective, once again, is going to be 9.
Oh, objective still an 8, even with your world building reservations with the Reavers?
Character work picked it up.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah, my objective is, I'll say 7. Because you kind of sold me on that. I didn't care originally, but now you brought it up. Now I care about it. So
fair enough.
7
yeah.
objective. Subjective is still an 8. Sinister.
I was at a 9, but Ryder sold me on the Alliance having a major blind spot there. So I'm gonna have to bump it down. I think I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
And Springs.
Objective 8, subjective 6.5.
All right, episode 4. Springs, you can start this one off.
The forwarding.
Oh, where to start? I said something good about the last one, so let's take something bad. You can see the camera lenses when they're in town on the corners of the screen.
I don't think I'm watching these shows the same way you are.
How many times did you watch this? Did you watch this once or twice? Springs.
I watched it once, but I'm able to see these things. So
are you looking for these things, or are you just seeing these things? That's my real question.
That's how my brain is wired.
Okay. That's fine. I'm not trying to judge you. I'm just,
but with observation, I didn't see it.
And I think this is when Kylie's looking at the dress before they
Kaylee.
Kaylee sees the dress and they meet up with Badger again. All four corners of the screen have a slight black.
Oh, the
curve.
fade effect thing.
Yeah, that
I
was.
think it's
Okay.
I think it's the lens of the camera.
No, that was definitely post.
Why would that be in post? What does
I
that?
don't know. But I don't think that was the camera.
Yeah.
Um,
We
If
know
it was
there's
the camera, they
a
would've
lot of.
noticed it, like, way
we
sooner.
could theoretically blame the studio for that one too, because they could have prevented creative freedom in the post room too.
Part.
Because if it was a camera, it would have just been throughout the entire show, right? That would have had to have been a different camera to cause that specific issue, right?
Well,
What would cause that issue?
Like, how would
shouldn't
you
be
have a
an
lens
issue.
like fuck up like that? Yeah, that's like
I'm pretty sure that's just done in post to maybe add an atmosphere to that
if
planet
it's
they're on.
just in post, that's even worse because it's
It
not
wa-
for
it was
one
ugly.
shot. It's only for one set of shots, or I guess in my mind, it was just on one of the cameras being used for the scene. It'd be
I have to see
weird
it
if it was a choice for only certain parts and not
I'm gonna have
the
to-
whole town's part
I'm gonna have to
of
watch it
Persephone.
again.
Because I remember it specifically, but I don't recall if it disappears when they hop to a different angle or not. I'd have to see that again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are.
But I'm pretty sure that was post. That's kind of,
Okay, there are
I
some.
don't know what would
angles
cause
where
that
it's
on a
not there.
camera to do that, because that would be like showing the sides of the camera lens, which shouldn't be possible because that kind of defeats the purpose of having the camera lens being where it is positioned. But either way, I agree, it doesn't look good. It looked very like
Yeah,
cheesy.
it
looking.
wouldn't have bothered me if it was throughout the whole scene. If
I
it
don't
did
know.
change, it's
I
the
think
fact
that
that it
would've bothered me
flopping
more.
was the weird thing.
Yeah, I think it should have just been removed if it was truly done in post.
Truly.
I would love to find out why it would be the camera if that is the case. Well, we never know on that account. Writer, you got anything?
Let's see. I like Mal's pseudo apology to Kaylee, by getting her the dress and having her tag along.
That
just
is
because
a
Yeah.
poofy dress.
it very
It
much
was
is,
really
but it is what she wanted, and he shuts her down pretty hard in the street, and to the point where even his crew kind of backlashes on him. And I like that his way of apology is just by getting her the dress, and they go to the party together.
Do you want to look like a sheep walking on its hind legs?
She wants the dress. You know what? She can dress in whatever she wants.
True.
I do. It's another sign of Malcolm's like character. I think like a very he knows he knows when he's done wrong to his crew, so he apologizes in roundabout ways.
But if only he could realize that before he actually says the.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty mean.
It was a brutal shutdown, yeah. But
Yeah.
part of the reason that Malcolm is so beloved is because he doesn't have a filter most of the time.
That's true.
So it's
Like,
kind of
for his own past.
it's kind of hard to write around that. And I think they did a well enough job to to formulate the apology in a more subtle way. In the way that he doesn't directly apologize, he just speaks with his actions instead.
Yeah.
Something I'll throw out there is the sword fight. I was a little disappointed in it.
Yeah.
I think it was a better fight than with the goons.
Well, because they actually had to
train
choreograph
episode.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was better than that, but it's still. Well, he's a professional swordsman, and it just felt very meh.
Felt stage
You're
fighty.
Going with him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in that aspect, but it just didn't feel entertaining. The sword fight.
Yeah, I was expecting a little bit more, but
Flair. Yeah. Like,
And
I think the
I'm
ending
fine
is
with
fine. Ending is
how-
fine. Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
I was just gonna say I like how Malcolm. I like conceptually him kind of cheating to win.
yeah,
It was kind of a lame way that he ended up winning. I was hoping he'd cheat some other way than just him getting distracted from Inara.
Yeah. Because it seems like
But-
that would kind of that would make it invalid in some way because technically he
Outside interference.
yeah, but
No,
no
if he
rule.
like grabbed dirt, threw it in his eyes or something, which is kind of cliche to a degree, but I think I would have preferred that. 'Cause I feel like Malcolm has some integrity and respect and stuff, but him just taking him out during a timeout essentially might be a little too extreme for what I thought his character would do. But
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you guys view on that?
well
I
don't he could,
I think it's
yeah,
in
I'll let her go.
character. I agree that I think I would have preferred he cheated a different way, because I do think Malcolm would cheat to win this fight, because that's how he is. That's how he operates. I mean, he's killed people for less reason. So
He's got a point.
So I'm more than happy to assume that she would cheat for this fight to win. I just agree that the cheating part in itself was a little on the lame side.
I think well yeah, like so I was kind of with Crimson there, but I think it, because we actually see him actually training and trying to get better at it. I think it kind of works because he was legitimately trying to do it honestly,
Mm-hmm.
and and unfortunately he just couldn't actually
Be a professional from one night of training.
yeah, exactly. So but he does try. I mean, he doesn't just like, I'm just going to go in and cheat from the
Oh yeah,
very
no,
beginning kind of thing.
sorry, I do like that he doesn't cheat at the beginning. Like, he is trying. So
He is like, he's doing it honestly, and actually doing a decent job, even though the other guy's intentionally making him look like he's doing a decent job, so he drops his guard, which is sound strategy.
I do think that one thing I would have liked better is if Malcolm realized at some point that he was being toyed with, and that's when he also started cheating a little bit more or enacted it, because I feel like that would be more, I guess, mid-fight motivation for him to switch tactics.
Yeah.
I did not like that he just charged him when he was standing there.
No, that was
Yeah.
fucking
That was
stupid.
so stupid.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a doer more than a thinker first, but he has been shown to be very intelligent, so I did also not like that. I wrote that down, and I meant to ask you guys what you thought of that.
Yeah, it was very stupid. He fights a lot. He doesn't do sword fights, but he fights a lot.
Yeah, so like, I'm assuming he would have basic intelligence to not do that, right?
Because even in like a brawl, if you charge like that, they can just turn to the side and chuck you and throw you to the ground.
But
it's a very easy way to throw you down from a charge.
But Inara is involved here, and he's got a supposed soft spot for her, so he's clouded his judgment. No, I agree. It's not a really good character moment for him.
Springs, what do you think about the sword fight as a whole? And
As a whole, I thought it was fine and okay, because that's the character of what Malcolm is, thinking he can get things done his way, even with the training that he had from Inara the night before. But I do think it was kind of dumb that after a couple hits, he started just getting a little more rage and not thinking clearly for like the charge kind of attack he did. And it had to take a distraction for him to kind of cheat to win.
got all perspectives.
Perspectives.
While you're going, Springs, is there nothing you want to point out?
I couldn't tell if Book was so invested in this card game that he was blind to what River was doing.
I think so.
He had clear eyeline shot to her, making an absolute pretty noisy mess of the cans and food.
I did like how long it took him to actually go up and do something about.
I mean, Simon was the first one to react, and
Well, obviously, yeah.
stopped, but it was just interesting to me. I mean, Jane had his back and very much gives pretty much no care, so he's fine. Simon overly cares for his sister River, and I guess in his peripherals could see her. But the fact that Book was direct eyeline with her, and she was doing all this, and he didn't say or acknowledge
Yeah.
anything was just weird to me.
I don't know.
I'll-
I'm more content that this is a scenario that I'm more content to more fine with Book not really doing anything because she's not really doing anything harmful, like potentially.
Yeah.
So I'm more okay of just him. I'm more okay with it. Yeah.
I'm no mental expert, but I know enough that kind of when people that are, mentally unwell are kind of having moments like that, if they're not harming themselves or somebody else, it's not really your first instinct shouldn't be over to like stop them because they could unintentionally harm you when they're having an episode. So I think what they were trying to just kind of let her play it out, but then as it, got more aggressive, they kind of had to, subdue or,
Step in.
like, just calm her down. Yeah.
Ryder, you got it?
I do. Kind of in that scene, I really like that they're another slice of life thing is they're trading ship duties as a card game.
Yeah.
I actually really like that. Like that's
And
what
Jane
they're
cheats.
and Jane cheats because it's in character.
Yeah.
But I do. I do.
He sees his moment, he takes it.
Yeah, I do like this. It's a nice slice of life and just what life on a ship is like for when you're stuck with people for a long time in one place that you would trade ship duties like a card game. I really love it. I have definitely used it, and many other prospective sci-fi writers have taken it as well.
Yeah. What was like the plums? What was that? Is that just like
Some card game. I don't know.
okay? This is some future card game that we'll never know.
Well, no, I mean like I think they're legitimately trading duties and stuff.
Well, they
But I
do
mean,
these,
like,
but he's talking about the game itself, the
Oh,
cards.
okay.
Yeah, the cards.
No, I have no idea. No.
I liked Kaylee at the ball.
Oh yeah, where
Yeah.
she gets trash talked by the prissy frickin'
The prissy
uh,
crowd.
the prissy Blanche Dubois lady. Yeah.
I also like that kind of in the same vein. I also like that she starts talking shop and all the guys come over to her.
Yes. She's a very popular female there for sure. It's like the car girl,
Yeah.
girls that know cars get all the car
Well,
guys
because
around her.
husbands don't get to talk about that except with like other guys. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that, and her wanting to investigate the buffet.
yeah.
Her just really enjoying herself at this party.
Yeah,
And-
like I said, I'm really
yeah.
it for me. It also adds, like I said, he knows how much Malcolm knows how much Kaylee would want to experience something like this. So it just adds even more layer into his apology, I think, as why he brought her along.
Oh, it was better last year. Well, what did they serve last year? Oh, they just had
Standards.
standards.
Vicious.
Oh,
Yeah. Fucking vicious.
Oh,
Yeah.
I could feel that. I was like, oh my god. So mean.
Floating chandeliers, like so fancy and odd that they kept bringing it up.
Yeah, I liked how it was a big point for Malcolm. He was just like he couldn't get over it. Like, why is it floating? I mean, I get it, class, but why floating?
I have something else that I want to bring up, but I don't know if I should, just because it could potentially hint at spoilers.
Mm.
Well,
Maybe
we
save
wouldn't
it.
have known that until you said that.
Well, okay, that's true.
Can you cover it in some way?
No, I don't think I can.
Oh, okay.
We can point to this moment in part 2 and be like, "This is
Yeah.
what I would have said."
Yeah,
This is
maybe.
what I was gonna say. but then-
Okay, I'll move on to something else. What did you all think of River and Badger's interaction?
I like that.
I like
I was
it very
curious what
much.
she was gonna do.
That was pretty
Yeah.
Yeah.
She definitely analyzed him real well.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that he took it in strides.
Yeah.
He was like, I like her. I
Yeah,
like her.
she just fucking downloaded him, and I was like, I like this. This is great.
I just love
Yeah.
that he let her go and everything.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that honestly said a lot about his character. That he talks this big game, but I guess but I think deep down he would like somebody else to kind of talk down to him or something. I don't know. It's a thing.
Are you assuming he has a fetish? I mean, it's not an
I think he
impossibility.
probably it's I think it's just like a I don't is he Irish or is he supposed to be like just British? I'm not quite sure.
Foreign.
Well, yeah, he's English or like Irish people would not like to be lumped in with the English, but there is this kind of like most of like the I don't want to generalize again, but like there's a definitely a thing in European where the wife definitely has like final say on a bunch on a bunch of stuff, and it's usually like as far as like home life goes is in control, and the husband isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just kind of was spoken to his upbringing, where like the woman has the say over she or at least not maybe she doesn't have like control, but like she knows like her husband or her guy or whatever, and knows when he's like full of shit and when he needs to be taught a lesson kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And that's probably some. Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you think this proves that he's stupid or that he really wasn't a threat to the crew? Because him letting her go, she could have totally done stuff.
Yeah.
And screwed up his plans. So that would technically be stupid on his part.
Well, like I say,
what do you think?
I'm thinking he's just more not really a threat because like he says he's just there to keep them in the ship. Like he's not want to hurt them.
Goons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, but like he wants to keep them in the ship, and I think that's fine as motivation because she could go and do stuff, but as long as she doesn't leave the ship, I don't think he much cares.
I think what he was just like, he was trying to, start something or and then with her like shutdown of him or whatever, she actually endeared herself to him because he's obviously probably being in a situation as he is, he's not really used to, or he doesn't really take getting talked down to very much, I'm assuming. And so to kind of have that happen probably endeared her to him.
Sprinks, got anything?
For the rest of episode 4,
Any thoughts on Warwick or anything? We haven't talked about him at all. Or Atherton.
The guy that she like meets up with, yeah.
No, not really.
Okay.
Did you like his? Did anybody like his two-facedness about everything, or
Warwick or
Atherton?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's like, oh, I'm a gentleman, and then the first chance he gets, he calls her a whore.
Well, I mean, this is after she broke his heart, so
I guess, but still,
yeah.
I love Malcolm's interaction with Inara because it's a very, very weird relationship these two.
Yeah.
I like that. I
calling her a whore all the time.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah, but the difference is like as he says, he's mocking like
the job,
not her. Yeah. I was gonna ask what you guys thought of their relationship because Inara approached him, so I was kind of more annoyed with her for interrupting the job negotiation part. But I do think their dance scene was okay. Like it transitioned to that, and they had a good back and forth and a good rapport. And it made Atherton jealous, so it made me smirk a little bit at that.
Yeah, there was no redeeming qualities about Atherton.
No, he was just I
mean, he seemed like a fine gentleman at first.
I don't know. Even at first,
I guess you'll have to score with women using your winning personality now.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I do think that he started out okay and then he just declined. So.
And I guess any more final thoughts on this episode?
I'm trying to think if there's anything. What do you think? Like, okay, this was something that we kind of touched on, but I was just curious because most of the time when like River's having like some sort of breakdown or something, it's involved with the plot somewhere down the line. But this one just kind of seemed to like not have much of a purpose. Do you think? What do you guys think about that?
her
I guess you're
breakdown.
technically right. Because
Well,
it
'cause
didn't
like
really
she-
further much relationships or anything.
Mhm.
I guess technically it wasn't that prevalent to a point where I think it should have been removed because it didn't contribute.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I'm not saying it should have been removed, but I'm just like
but
curious.
I guess there was less weight in this episode with her interactions
Mm-hmm.
and stuff.
Mhm.
Like the only real thing was just her talking to Badger. That's the main thing, I suppose.
Yeah, so I guess maybe yeah, but I was just curious because normally when they have like her episodes and stuff, it's somehow in the plot is involved or her idea, like what's going to happen in it. But that one just seemed to sort of have just had like a breakdown. But not saying they all have to have a point. I'm just
Yeah.
yeah. I was just curious. I was like, wow, that's like the first time where it didn't kind of have anything to do with sort of the like some other part of the story. It was just she was having an episode.
Ryder, did you have anything else? Or are you good to continue?
I'm good to continue. Other than, I mean, my only comment is pretty much Mel's and Inara's relationship was very, very much more fleshed out in this episode.
Hmm.
Or at least their rapport is, if not their relationship.
Oh yeah, they showed jealousy and stuff from Malcolm. even though he plays it off as not jealousy.
Yeah.
There's a sexual tension.
There is. I mean that's Inara's whole character.
Yeah, sexual tension.
It's her job. All right. Well, we'll get right to the ratings then. Ryder.
7 and then 9. Objective and subjective, respectively. Oh no, wait. Subjective is 8. Sorry.
There you go.
Watered down. My objective would also be 7, and my subjective would be a 6.5. I'm not the biggest fan of the main plot of this one.
Yeah.
Sinister.
I'm kind of in a this one was probably one of my lesser episodes. I do like a lot of the characterization that this one brings with it. I think that's good, but it's definitely kind of the most like low key out of all the ones that I've seen so far and have experienced. So this one was a 7 for me, but I do think that it's a good episode for character development and everything.
And Springs.
Objective 8, subjective 7.
Sweet. On to episode 5.
And once again, Springs, I'm just left with more questions.
What is the title of this one?
I don't know.
We haven't been doing
what's the name of this one?
Safe.
I didn't write down the names.
Safe.
Safe.
Yeah.
Okay. Episode 5, Safe.
And
And
last one
I'll
was
just
called Shindig.
start this one off where we get to see a young Zac Efron.
Yeah, boy.
Apparently, his first role was this.
And I mean, he's fully formed.
Yeah, I saw him there. I'm like, they did a good job casting a younger Simon. And then I'm like, wait a sec, Zac Efron? And then I paused it, and looked it up. I'm like, oh my god, it was.
It might be my favorite thing that Zac Efron's ever been a part of.
But High School Musical.
But I stand by with what I said.
Yeah.
And Dirty Grandpa or whatever it was called.
And the Greatest Showman.
I stand by with what I said.
yeah.
Remember that? Remember that thing we did?
Yeah.
So yeah, this whole flashback bit, I think was good. I feel like they could have done more with it because it didn't really.
Well, they only
say
used like the
much.
young kids for like one of them, and then it's them fully grown for like the rest of it.
Yeah, because the only real takeaway from it is the dad was supportive of them as kids.
Well, of his son, less so of his.
Well, once she
River.
gets to age.
Yeah.
Claim to have given her the stuff. So I feel like they could have done more with this initial flashback, but it was okay.
Yeah. There's the world building is also very, very subtle too. Like the whole shield going around the house.
Yeah. Little green laser fence thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Writer, you got anything?
Let's see. Again, I'm doing screenshots. I'm not the person to ask at the beginning.
All right, Sprinks, you got something.
Shoot. This was the episode that gave us the first previously,
Previously on,
and no other episode's done that so far.
because this is important.
That
just-
is true.
To me,
Do
that
you think
it's
it was
episode
warranted?
5.
Well, I guess because of how centric this is on River and Simon, I guess so, because most of the other episodes haven't really featured them heavily. So if you've kind of forgotten about a bunch of stuff, you could kind of get it. I don't know.
I mean, it's
Doesn't
the
seem
same.
like it's
I mean, it's the same reason I put trigger warnings at the start of my chapters for those who are more read and forget than rather than those who are paying attention to every little nitty gritty detail.
Hmm.
So yeah.
This is probably so far the most cowboy episode, I think, out of all.
Yeah.
They actually have cattle. They deliver cattle.
Yeah,
You delivered
that was the deal
Which-
made from last episode. They're delivering cattle.
I did not expect that to carry over.
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be a
honestly.
one-off, and they'd have
Yeah.
a new mission, but it actually continued. That was a surprise. Sprinks, do you have anything to talk about other than just like the observation? Such thing?
Sure. The weapons are wild.
Wild.
What kind of guns are? I don't understand the guns.
Well, it's weird because in the first episode, when in the war, they have like lasers and stuff, but now it just seems to be bullets.
Well, it's even stranger because they just look like normal revolvers, but they make laser sound effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But don't-
I don't know how
Make
the weapons work.
lasers themselves. They just make noises.
yeah.
I mean, I would guess it works like in a similar way the Star Wars pistols would. Whereas the revolver aspect to the gun is like the specific laser canister that you just used needs to reheat and recharge. So that's why you just keep switching around. And by the time that one comes back around, it's cooled off to fire again. That's how I imagine that they work, but I genuinely have no idea how they fucking work.
I think that only works with some of the weapons shown. Because others, you can actually see the bullets in them. And
It
to
depends.
my knowledge, we haven't seen anyone actually reload a gun, really. But there is, in the next episode, Jane does attach a clip to a gun.
Yeah.
So they do definitely need ammunition of some sort, of at least some weapons.
At least the bullet based ones.
Yeah.
Laser bullets.
Even the bullets
Laser
ones
bullets.
have noises, laser noises.
Yeah,
Is-
that's my hiccup. Is
Yeah.
those laser sounds, but no
So
laser coming out.
that was just wild to me.
I will say a big issue for me, and I mean, it's just I'm taking a little bit of the time and of the tone they're trying to set. The sound design in this is a little wonky.
Yeah, I can agree. I can just blanket
Because-
agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go too far into it because it's just I'm taking it with a grain of salt that it's of the era, and yeah,
Well, I don't know if that can affect audio because they could do audio. I think
well, yeah, but
it
if
could
you're
have
trying
just
to
been
like,
done poorly. I
yeah,
don't think it's product of the time. In regards to audio, I'll bring it up now since we're on audio though. What's everybody's thoughts on the music of this show?
I'm not into it.
I love it.
I'm not. Listen. I understand what they're going for, and I appreciate it. That's what I'll say. I get the vibe they're trying to set, and I think it does fit for the most part, but it's a little bit too. It leans into itself, I think, a little bit too much, of like to the point where it's like futuristic enough where I'm like, I kind of feel like they wouldn't just be using it wouldn't just be like acoustic, light acoustic stuff the whole time. It would actually, there'd be some other element of music going off at some point.
I guess
some-
my comparison for you would be Hans Zimmer's Dune score being very, very otherworldly. You lean more towards that.
I don't need it to be otherworldly, but sometimes all I'm saying is like aesthetically it fits very well, and that's the praise I'll give it, that it does fit.
Okay.
But I think it's at the, but my problems with it is that it's kind of it's so nuanced, or it's kind of, it doesn't really hold the power. So like when something really bombastic is happening, and you just have like a round, or like you just like one guitar going and then some other stuff. It doesn't really feel like it still has that heaviness to it. It doesn't have that impact. It just feels kind of too like fragile, I guess. If that's a
I mean, I guess my comparison to this is one of my friends complained about the Destiny score and how just playing, like, for her, like, that score was not was never conducive to what was happening on screen. It was either too epic or did too little.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm like, so I think it works enough where I can't bash it too much, because I think for most of the time it does fit and it does work. But there was a couple moments that if I had taken notes, I would have been able to bring up. So I'm immediately, bashing myself or knocking some points off for myself, credibility wise there. But where it was just kind of like, that just didn't fit. That needed to be a little bit more bombastic, or a little bit more weight to it. But like I said, for the most part, I think it does fit the aesthetic. So I'm not against it overall.
Do you think Malcolm would have actually wanted Simon and River to walk away on their own?
I assumed he would have just sent them back to the ship. That was a little odd to me.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I thought, was why not send them to the ship? Obviously, it's because the writers needed them to be alone.
Right, the writers needed that plot device to happen. It's very obvious, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad we agree that didn't really make much sense.
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean, like, the only thing in defense of it is maybe Simon wanted to take a break from the ship because of how he was talked down to, so that's why he went to town. That's the only thing I could think of. But I don't think he would do that. He was
instructed to do it, though.
Yeah, like,
I love every time he. Sorry, I love every time he has a miscommunication with Kaylee. It's really fun.
It is very funny, and it speaks to, I guess, him as a character. But as I was saying, for him choosing to leave, there's an avenue where that could work. I think the problem is that he's too worried about being spotted by the Alliance at this point. Like, they're wanted fugitives. So I don't think that it's in character for enough to him to want to go this route.
I would agree. It does. It definitely feels like something that should have happened maybe an episode or two later. But
maybe when he goes more comfortable with the crew and stuff. Yeah.
Because it does feel like just kind of, pushing like a newborn like chick out of the nest like immediately after.
I will complain about that next episode for sure.
Yeah. So it's a whole thing. But I think they for as off as it seems, we're making it, I guess, here, it does. I think it works more than it doesn't, but still, it's
not the end of the world.
It's definitely a tool. They chose to do this, and it's an obvious that they chose to do this. Like, it's not like I'm questioning obviously
it's
the
not character driven. It's writer driven.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Speaking of writer, do you have a point to bring up?
I think I probably, it's more of a question. Did we don't see Preacher get shot, right? Like, he just goes down off screen.
No, no, wait.
We just turn and he's on the ground, right?
I think so.
I feel like we did. Hold on.
Maybe the guns.
You were watching this. Yeah. You could have seen this.
You see details. Did he get shot in our view?
I do not think we saw him actually get hit.
Okay.
I believe it's definitive. The fight that turned around and he's on the ground.
Anyways, I'm gonna point out, this is, I think, the fight that bothered me the most, because there's a lot of quick cuts in this fight. Yeah. This is the fight that bothered me the most, because I think I prefer the terrible like acting fight in episode 2 to this, where it's just a bunch of quick rapid cuts and
blame.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was
How
too
are
much.
you
people
lose.
getting shot?
Yeah,
They were so
you.
close to each other.
Yeah, why aren't the cows getting shot? It's just like they're essentially using them as cover.
We only kill horses on this show. Okay.
Maybe.
And wound.
Yeah, I was a bit bothered by the shootout here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not good.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, and I think it definitely suffered from being too quickly cut. It's
Unfortunate or unlucky, Malcolm.
yeah.
That the cops just happened to show up for the buyers he was selling to.
Yep.
Unfortunate. Mm-hmm.
Anything that can goes wrong will go wrong, and several times, in fact.
Let's see. Sensor, you got a point?
I I kind of mentioned it, but I guess I'll mention a specific event that happens in this episode. So, Kaylee obviously has the hots for Simon, the young doctor.
What?
Yeah, in fact, Jane even makes a joke of it in the first episode, saying that she wishes he was a gynecologist. Which yeah, it's pretty good. But so she's like, oh, I want to buy. She's like with Inara, and she's like, I want to buy him this plate in this general store. She thinks it looks high class.
Mm-hmm.
And he immediately comes in with his sister, and he looks at the plate, and he's like, God, and they want money for this? Jesus, it looks like crap.
That was hilarious.
It's supported, I think, by the rich upbringing that we now know he's had.
And I even with like because it's funny that he would be that kind of fish out of water experience, but like he's not really. It's all like unintentionally. He's not trying to be like rude, just for the sake of being rude. It's just like it's his upbringing that just keeps coming back up. He can't quite shake off. But yeah, I was like, oh man, because I know I've like had not that same situation, but like something similar to that happen where somebody's like, oh my God, this is like my favorite thing, and then you walk in and it's like, wow, this shit sucks or something.
Yeah.
No.
Sprinks, do you feel a little disappointed that they didn't bring out the giant scales and the duck to weigh River?
Nah, they didn't need that.
Oh,
They should have,
Yeah.
but they should have done the famous test where you throw her in the river, and if she drowns, she's normal, and if she doesn't, she's a witch.
yeah.
I think it just kind of
they
results around the
did more-
village that they're in.
They did more the Catholic Church approach, was just burn them alive,
The witch.
What is it? I don't understand. It wasn't there like a thing, like a famous thing with that where. What was the reason behind it? Like, it was like, oh, if they were a good person, they still would have burned up, but if they were a bad person, they definitely would have burned up or something. I can't remember the logic behind it. There was some, like, double standard where it was like...
the Catholic Church applying logic, that's funny.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, yeah, it was like...
Fired.
Where if you applied logic to it after the fact, it didn't make any fucking sense. But it was some reason like, oh yeah, well, if they, burn alive, they're a witch. And if they aren't a witch, they'll still burn alive. So it doesn't matter or something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. I'm sure somebody will be like, well, actually, if you read the Salem witch trials, it'll actually tell you, and like, okay, whatever. But
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the camp that they got kidnapped to go to.
Listen, I was just happy that it wasn't like nothing like sexual happened, because that would have really fucking done it for me.
It's the show does a good job of subverting expectations.
Yeah.
I know, I'm saying the thing.
That's a crime. You can't say that.
Yeah, I know. We could blame Ryan Johnson for changing the law later. But I do think that it's one of those things where you're expecting one thing and you're supplied something entirely different that still makes some sense in context.
Yeah.
I mean, we brought that up with Crow and the Turbine. Like, he set himself up to be a recurring bad guy.
Yep.
Oop, he's gone.
Yep.
Yeah, I will agree.
So,
It
yeah,
does,
they
it does
definitely do a
work,
lot of that.
Yeah, it does work.
I guess I like River. I like it that River and Simon in this episode a lot. They do carry this episode for me, especially when they're at the new town. and then we kind of see River's a glimpse of more of her sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really like their relationship.
Oh, I think I figured it. So like so Simon becomes the doctor of the town for like a day.
Yeah.
And then River uses like what we're assuming is like telepathy or something to talk to this mute girl, who then finds out that her parents had been killed like viciously or something, or her mom had killed like her family and then killed herself or something.
Yeah, that sounds alright.
Yeah, it was something along those lines. And she says this, and then the nurse, or the I don't really know what she's like a caretaker or something. They don't really give her like a she's like, oh my god, you got her to talk? Nobody's, and she's like, no, she didn't talk. Her voice got scared away, or like classic thing. And she's like, and she starts repeating like that Bible verse. I don't know if it's actually a real Bible verse or if it's just like their
their Bible,
their Bible.
It is. I believe that is an actual verse.
Yeah, it sounded familiar, but I was like, I don't want to say it's the actual Bible if I'm not certain. But so
Frank, is that a real Bible verse?
So I don't know.
That's what I was talking about with like the double standard of like, oh, this person's gonna come in and do all this good stuff, but don't trust them. They're bad. Don't look too far into it. They're bad. Because like they haven't done anything that harms anybody, but they're immediately like just like, oh, well, we have to kill her. She's bad. She's a witch.
Yeah, witches are bad.
Listen, we know you've like healed a bunch of people, and you're being really good. You're being really okay with the whole kidnapping part, but yeah, we got to burn her at the stake. It's over.
Yeah, well, we at least know why the prefect wants to burn at the stake.
Yes. Not gonna say that.
He was pretty level-headed. He was going to let them go, and then River had to be like, "Well, you killed your predecessor, so."
Oh, no!
She's lying. Burn her.
I like how though it was immediately like, she is a witch. She is telling the truth. She can read minds. She knows. Nobody's like, wait, you killed that guy? Like what? Hold on,
she can read
a little bit.
minds. She's telling lies.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
See, that would have worked. That would have been the way out. Like, no, she can't read minds. Never mind. She's okay. She's not a witch.
I liked when River got the berries and
the poison joke. It's great.
Man, Simon can't catch a break. He's just getting lied to left and right.
No, getting emotionally traumatized by these people.
Yeah.
Oh, you killed that girl. Oh, you're gonna die. Like
in that very same vein, I like that as soon as Preacher's shot and they leave the planet, Doc and River behind, Jane immediately just goes through their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fits. Yeah. And I like how he's still in there when Simon shows up. And he's
rushing to put everything back.
Yeah. Nope.
Jane is pretty funny.
Is he your favorite?
And he might be. Between him and Malcolm, I think.
Well, you just like Nathan Fillion, so I mean.
Adam Baldwin, I think, is his name.
Is he Baldwin?
His last name is Baldwin. I know that for sure. He's pretty darn good in the show Chuck. And Castle.
I know him.
Is he a similar character? Is he a similar character in Chuck, or is he?
Yes, he's an uptight, serious guy, but kind of similar type of jokes.
Okay.
But yeah. Final thoughts on anything? Anyone got anything? Specifically Sprinks, because you haven't talked in a while.
I mean, it's all kind of been covered in episode 5, so no, not really.
Okay. Ryder? Nothing?
Well,
I don't know. I think I got most of my stuff.
I think I got most of mine in. I do like that ending conversation between Mal and the doctor. Like, why Mal's kind of dodging the question of why he came back. When, it's...
Yeah.
We know why he did. He's a part of his crew, and that's how he treats his crew. But I do like he just dodges the question. I felt that's more in character.
Yeah, well, why'd you come for me? Because you're part of the crew, but you don't like me because you're part of the crew.
Why are we still talking about this?
Part of the ship, part of the crew, part of the ship, part of the crew.
That's funny.
Yeah, there's a lot. There was I will say, I think this was another kind of one that I wasn't as into, but I think the character development here saved it a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I am. Whenever the plot is weak, I think the character development picks it up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll go into ratings, right?
Ratings.
This one is a 7 for me objectively, and also a 7 subjectively.
Yeah, I think 7.5 objectively and 7 subjectively.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 7.5, just because I think there is some really, really good character development that happens in this, even though the plot is a little lacking.
Thanks.
Wow, there is certainly an echo in here because it's a 7.5 objective for me and a 7 subjective.
Oh my god, what are we gonna do? We can't have this without discourse. Come on.
Oh, don't worry, I can hold Sprinks over the fire for a 6.5. So.
On to episode 6, which is called, someone tell me?
Our Mrs. Reynolds.
There we go. That's the name of it.
Frickin' Christina Hendricks. Thank you.
I don't know who that is, but good.
Straight a thing for Christina Hendricks.
I like this. Yeah, she was when I was a younger fella. I definitely had a crush on Christina Hendricks.
She's definitely a looker. I'll give her that.
Yeah. I got a thing for redheads. Sue me.
All right. Since you're so interested, Sinister, you can start it off.
Okay, this was this was my quote. This is where my quote was from, because they have a classic misdirection, a subverting of expectations. Again,
yeah.
They have.
It's for tactical reasons.
Yeah, they get ambushed. The carriage gets ambushed, which is classic Western, by some bandits, and then so like a wife and a husband, and the guy's like, all right, leave your shit here and give me some time alone with your wife. And he's like, I don't know, Jane. And he's like, geez, I can't remember how he describes
her. Pretty much is ugly.
Yeah, it is ugly, but yeah, I was trying to the actual words were funny, but
quote guy, do you remember?
Nope.
You're our last.
Okay.
Quote. Shoot.
Anyways, put it in after the words, but yeah, like a baboon's ass twice as ugly or something.
And then Nathan's all offended. It's great.
Yeah, it was like, I beg your pardon. You were not the man I married a year ago. Yeah, and they're like, what the hell? And then they have a good old fashioned shootout.
And then gun them down again.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Gun down everybody.
Yeah, so far they haven't had a real challenge, except for Badger for some reason.
Mind you, they offer them to surrender first. They ask them to surrender first, and then they refuse.
They do.
So they gun them down. They had the reason to.
They don't do it without reason. And so then obviously the townsfolk they have to have a huge party.
Yes.
Yeah, and we get Jane with his rain stick.
He almost cries. It was funny.
Yeah. Do you think he actually do you think it's just because he's drunk? Or
I do think he's actually drunk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
because later it shows he doesn't really care about it.
Yeah.
Especially compared to Malcolm's prize.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's Sprinks? What's Malcolm's prize?
He gets redhead, Christina Hendricks.
It's redhead.
Correct.
And if you were an uncouth man, you'd say he gets the red carpet welcome.
Yeah, I do like the back and forth between Zoe and Mal here. He's like, why wasn't Zoe in the dress? And he's like, because tactics, woman. We needed her in the back to shoot them.
Yeah, and I like a nice breeze. Wait, how many times have you done this? Oh, I don't know. It's like the classic Looney Tunes cross-dressing. I love it.
I guess.
Sprix,
Yes. What?
say something.
Anything.
What have you got?
Oh, hey, flesh.
Wow.
Whoa.
I guess we'll go with one of my biggest downsides to this episode, if not
Oh.
the downside of the episode.
Is it a double whammy? Two big downsides?
Well,
Possibly.
I have kind of two things, but the
Thank
big
you.
one. How come the vacuum of space does not affect their ship?
What do you mean?
They opened up the back door to shoot the net.
Okay.
Like boots.
It's a double door. They actually have 2 doors in the hangar. They show this in an earlier episode. There is a space between the main hangar door that closes, and then there's another door that closes down behind them. So it can function as an
decompressed
airlock.
it.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
can function as an
and then
airlock.
opened.
It's how they go into ships when they're like the derelict ship. Before they sealed it, it functions as an airlock as well.
Yeah, because you couldn't have. Yeah, everything would go fucking fine.
Yeah.
You don't want your cargo going away.
Yeah,
Sure. It's the
probably-
main thing that did not make any sense to me.
That one they do show it functioning as an airlock. So I would agree that would be a problem if I didn't notice that either.
Well, in that regards, that changes my objective.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
I got a
okay.
bad thing about the episode.
go on.
Oh, sure. Pile on.
Yeah. How the fuck
favorite
did
episode.
no one
Come
notice
on.
that she was on the ship? It's very convenient that she ended up here. And as we turn out later, because of who she actually is, how come no one in the town stopped her or noticed her? Because it felt like a small town, and you know everybody in a small town.
It's a long con.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long
Sure.
con. Yeah,
Well-
she'd been there for like 5 years.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Could that have been a normal place that she resides for capturing people?
If
but the
like, if
town,
we
but
see,
the
like-
town would still notice that she's there though,
Well, like even like Malcolm, who's shown
because
to be
she
like
was
a really
because she was dancing in the because she was dancing
Oh,
in
yeah.
the center of everybody because she had betrothed herself to Malcolm. She knows their customs, so I'll granted that she did her research. If this is a long con, but the town would still know that she's not from around there.
Well, do we know she's not? Because the people she works for that operate the net, that seems like a stationary.
Well, we know
station
that
they're at.
we go from a desert planet to a fucking ice house at the end.
Yeah, later. Yeah. She could easily have 2 houses.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't, it's
I don't think there's enough to imply one way or another how long she's been there.
Yeah.
If they accept her
Yeah,
there or
I mean,
not.
That's like I said,
because
that's
I read
that's one of my additional issues. Like I don't
Yeah.
see that as big as a problem as the fact that no one noticed that she
Yeah.
was there. Because there's a shot where Zoe clearly would have seen her in the back as Mal's walking the mayor off the ship.
yeah.
She's
yeah.
obviously Kitty Pryde, so
Yeah.
problems solved.
So,
Any other problems?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's something that could be extrapolated there for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough to really point out her stance with the community.
I label
'cause
it
at
I
least
label
from-
it more convenience than
Yeah.
anything else. Another
Obviously.
effective tool being used. Because I'm okay with it. Because I do like the character payoffs at the end, but it felt, I guess, jarring because I, one, didn't know how she ended up on the ship, and two, because of the twist, like I said, it's not definitive one way or the other with the town, which is, I guess, a little. I label that as a nitpick since it doesn't directly break the world, but it's still a nitpick, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I think there's at least enough where we can kind of just see that, okay, she's a very manipulative person.
Yeah.
And it is, and that she does like know her shit. Where I could see her getting around, but there's not enough really to say definitively like how
Mhm.
skilled she is. So there is a little bit of a weak point in that. But yeah,
Sure. Do you have a talking point?
I do. Yeah, so she becomes like his wife, which is again, this is like classic Mao being like really, really overly hurtful for like. I felt really bad for. I mean, because I understood exactly where he. Well, I didn't understand exactly where he was coming from, but I understood like the gist of like because you don't really want to. If you didn't
I don't
intend to
even
marry
know
some.
you.
Yeah, if you didn't intend to marry somebody, and you're married out of all of a sudden, it's a pretty jarring experience.
I do like how distraught Mal is, and I put in my notes. You see, Mal, this is why Starfleet has first contact protocols.
Yes, this is why you do your research. But then she, obviously she gets really hurt, but she recovers from it, which is amazing. I don't think a lot of people would. And kind of starts ingratiating herself into like with the crew somewhat, and mostly just with Mal. She makes him dinner, and freaking Shepard does like a really good line that made me think.
Okay, go ahead.
You want me to say it? You want me to say it?
I do.
If you love it.
Yeah. Well, I don't love it, but it definitely made me think. I was like, that's going to be a talking point, I'm sure. He says that if Mal, takes advantage, wherein sleeps with his bride, there will be because he doesn't technically want to be with his bride. He would be violating a code of marriage, which is true. There's a special place in hell with him where he'll sit between child molesters and people who talk during the movies.
People who talk in the theater, yeah.
People who talk in the theater, and I was like, I don't know who would feel worse, the child molesters or the movie theater people. If they're in the same, like, I don't think I belong in the same spot.
Are you a movie talker?
No, God, no. But I'm also not a child molester, so. And I haven't had sex with a bride that I didn't want, so I'm not going to that special place.
Oh, just ones you wanted. Good qualifier there.
Yeah.
Sprinks.
Ew.
More.
You have to fill the void.
Info from you.
So it's understandable that her house is this close to a off planet to the net that she took the shuttle to get to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is too coincidental or convenient that the planet she was originally on is what Malcolm say 5 days out from their original destination to get to. But then again, I don't necessarily know how long they've been traveling. Has it just been like a day and a half?
It was going to be a 5-day journey from there to a planet that starts with the B. I don't remember the name.
Like Biramon or something.
Yeah.
Or Barion.
Yeah.
Like
Something like that.
Barion.
And I know that the Webbers, the Netters are somewhere in that route. I don't think it was a full 5 days.
No.
Okay, I don't think it was the full 5 days either. I'm just thinking.
I don't even think it was a full day.
They
had to set up her sleeping arrangements. So
yeah.
I'm willing to say.
I think it was less than a day.
Yeah.
So I just think it was too coincidental from the planet they started on to take her to where they were going, for her to take over Serenity, to get to the Netters, to then escape on a separate planet is just too close in a whole.
Well, we don't know how long.
It's very dependent on her skills.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Because if she did fail, then that'd be kind of a big oversight on her part. So there's definitely a big risk in the plan. I can agree with that.
Mm-hmm. But like they said, she's good.
Yeah, she's very capable. She had training.
And did it ever state what she gets out of the deal?
No.
Probably money. I don't know.
Probably.
Okay, because it's shown to what the Netters do and how they benefit out of all of this, but she just leaves.
Probably because she got paid up front. Because I'm assuming she probably does this is somewhat established in a degree. So.
Okay. So, Sinister, if she got paid up front, where do you think the money she had up front is from the beginning of the episode?
She owns that planet. that her house is on.
She owns that planet.
Okay.
That's funny.
I
It's
don't
funny to
know.
think about.
Moon.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. I mean,
Like,
I don't
like
know.
it's like Cork's brother. She owns a moon. It's fine.
It
Okay.
could. I mean, yeah. I don't know. There's a definite hole there, but it's. I don't think. I think there's like enough. There's enough in the episode to kind of bridge those gaps where it's believable.
There's enough to kind of like explain away through loose ends, but there's not enough to be definitive about any explanation.
Yeah, that I would agree
Yeah,
with.
I'm nitpicking it for the reason that she's in the entire duration of the episode. She isn't just like a one scene town character.
Yeah. But we
There's
also-
enough to show that she has a job, and usually you get paid for jobs. I think that's all we really get.
Yeah.
And also, we don't know how long, like, between her escaping and them, and getting caught up with her is. Is it like a day, or is it?
Well, if
I think they
it's probably less than
immediately
that, it's
yeah,
probably pretty quick.
they immediately
Okay.
pass by the net, and then they look for surrounding planets or moons that the shuttle could have gotten to. Do I think that the first stop was hers? No, not at all.
Well,
that'd
I assume that Inara just had a tracker for her shuttle,
Yeah, she did put a tracker on there.
like so they could just track her shuttle. So that's why they just went to her quickly.
True. That would be
Inara.
helpful if they stated that.
Yeah, I agree. That would have to be something that's in the script.
Because what Malcolm said was they just went off of the fuel of what it would get to.
Yeah, which is I argue was more problematic.
Yeah, but at least there's an explanation.
Yeah, like I said, I will take some explanation over nothing.
Yes.
So yes, that is a gripe of mine in this episode.
Would you have held as strong as Mal did, or would you have crumbled pretty quickly?
I don't think I would have crumbled.
I would probably have a fairly equivalent level to Mal, but also like Sinister, redheads just chef's kiss. So
I mean, this is just me.
I would have given it my all to. I would be in the similar boat to Mal. I would have given it my all. I really would have.
Yeah,
Because I'm a fairly honorable person to a fault, but I do have a breaking point. I'll say that.
Yeah, if I didn't know any, like if I was in the exact same situation where I had no idea anything about them, I probably would also just try to keep my distance and not let it get too far out of hand. But there is definitely that point where it is like almost impossible.
Springs, you've been silent on this topic. What's the
be-
answer here?
This
I'd be
episode.
with Crimson on this, where I think I would hold my honor over it.
It did bring up a very funny scene when Inara, because she tries, I guess, CPR or whatever, breathe life into him and stuff, and I'm like, oh, she should be knocked out, and she screams for help, and then she's like, oh, well, I feel off. I'm like, yes, they did it. And she looked at him and said, you son of a.
Yeah, it was a nice payoff for that one.
Hilarious.
How did you feel that she kept being like, I fell? That's right, I fell. Like, no.
I assumed she was drugged up.
It was funny.
I assumed she was still high,
yeah.
so it added more. I really like the scene with Jane offering Vera his gun for her, for the redhead, because at the beginning,
This is a steal.
yeah, at the beginning, it plays off the tension for the first episode of Jane saying he would betray Mel for the right price, and it plays off that tension with him standing there with a loaded gun because he just clicked on pretty much, like he turned the safety off.
I'm willing to kill to get that girl.
Yeah.
No, I'm just here to trade my gun.
Yeah.
Springs, sounds like you aren't a fan of it. What?
I love that scene. Yeah.
Until Mal started talking, I originally thought what was happening was Jane was giving like a wedding gift. And I didn't realize it was a trade until they started talking back and forth.
Yeah, I thought it was going to. I played up the tension, and then I thought it was going to be a wedding gift as well when I first watched it. But then he wanted to trade it because he's a good man. He wants a fair
Well,
trade.
it's
That's
some
more.
honorability.
I think that's more in character for Jane than giving a gift. He'd want a trade.
I
Oh.
did like though that he
Something.
I did like that he clarified that it was. This isn't a trade. I'm getting ripped off here. This is the best damn gun ever made.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good characteristic of Malcolm that he remembered Jane's favorite gun's name later in the episode.
Yeah.
Vera.
He didn't just blow it off like go get a gun or something.
Yeah, he's like
Go get Vera.
yeah, he's like yeah, she's got a name, you know. He's like so does this gun, Vera. It's great.
See, Vera, if you get dressed up, we get to go to nice places.
I'm very glad that Wash held up.
Oh, me
I was
too.
nervous
Yeah.
that they were going to screw up his character because I think they
That
definitely
was-
would have screwed up
that,
his character if he caved.
Yeah.
That was another reason why the show, other than just the ratings, that was another reason why supposedly the show got canceled was because the execs at Fox wanted Wash and Zoe to have problems and to not have as good of a marriage, and Josh was like, no, that's yeah.
As a writer, the execs can go fuck themselves on that one.
He was like, yeah, no, they're not. I mean, they'll have issues, but they'll never like fight or break up and stuff. They'll always work through it.
I love how just awkward that Wash is throughout the whole scene. He's like, oh please God, no.
Yeah.
Just that constant
Please,
alarm bell in the back of his head is on his expression
he's
is
like,
great.
Listen,
So was it a
I'm
weird man?
yeah. He was like, if I'm faithful to my wife, but please don't make me test it.
I love
was
that
like-
she rolled her eyes
Yeah.
and kept babbling on about how good his
He's
wife
like,
was.
oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly like Saffron's character a lot because she realized that was the way to distract him. Like, just let him talk about his wife.
Yeah, and then just beat him up.
Yeah, then hit him in the back of the head. Yeah, it was very great. I liked it.
I liked Saffron and Inara's interaction.
Yeah, that was.
Are we done lying to each other now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The build up to it was
You're
like
good.
the build up to it was very annoying and cliche, but the payoff at the end was so worth it.
Yeah. You're good. So are you. Who are you?
Yeah. Don't play a player.
Yeah, don't players gotta play, but don't play a player. So yeah, this is definitely. I was a little. I liked how it ended up, but it was definitely kind of an awkward episode. I think from the first part because it was very emotional kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Based,
It has a rough start, but I think once it gets
it does
going,
have a rough. Yeah, once it gets going, it gets pretty good. Once it gets like all the twists in there, it becomes. Did you guys see the twist coming, or
when I was a kid, absolutely not.
Well, yeah, obviously now probably.
Yeah, I did because there didn't seem to be a problem in the episode, so that would mean she's probably the problem.
I think it was the second like she was really like aggressive with the cider.
Yeah, no,
I was like something's off here. This isn't right.
And that's the tip off, I suppose. So
Yeah, I mean, I was still like, okay, well, she could just be like really, trying really hard. But yeah, there's definitely. I was like, something's probably gonna happen with that. But I didn't see it until
I do like Malcolm's words to her in the hallway, where he's like, "Listen, if someone tries to kill you, you kill them back," or something like that. Something to that effect. That made me laugh.
Yeah,
dumb planet.
Because he's just he has morals and everything. But he's not like super like he doesn't think about them, so it just kind of comes out like well obviously if somebody tries to kill you, you kill them back.
Yeah,
like
you should never stand for that sort of thing. If someone tries to kill you, you try to kill them right back. Yeah. Sorry, I found the actual quote.
Yeah.
I think the best help to cover up the initial thought that she's has intentions or whatever to me was how Book explained how the people on that planet function
with like the wedding stuff.
Yeah, how they treat one another and how women to be wed as wives and their responsibilities and two husbands and whatnot, like how they act on that planet opposed to everyone willy-nilly, and how she really embodied that role of being that type of person, I think helped cement me that she wasn't as I guess dastardist as she is.
And it turning out to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to the storytelling, like showing instead of telling. Like you can see her mess with the wires, and then you can see her leave the bridge, but you can see her lay a patch in her that seals the door to it. And I really love those little details because we understand perfectly what she's done in both cases but we know it's not explained to us, you know?
I agree.
Well, yeah, and Anara points out Saffron's like body language and stuff, which I noticed throughout, where her head's always down and stuff.
It's very, very great. A lot of subtle stuff here.
It's that classic acting, the shot, like if you want to film like a power play between like two people, you have one person with an up shot, and then the other one is a low shot, and that, and it really works body language too. Generally, the person who's got their head down and everything has less power in the situation than the other person.
It's
good.
Yeah. Any final thoughts for this episode?
Yes, I yearn for true gender equality.
I wrote that down. I wrote equality in parentheses.
I wrote down the exact quote that I always use. I said I yearn for true gender equality. Malcolm just fucking knocks her the fuck out, and you know what? That's in character.
That did catch me by surprise. I was like, oh my god, I can't. They couldn't make this show now.
Yeah,
no way.
Absolutely not. But you know what? That's what true gender equality is. I'm pretty sure if a girl tried to, sleep through all of you and tried to murder all of us, I absolutely would hit her. All bets are off.
Yeah, there's definitely a point. Yeah, there's definitely a line there where it's like, yeah, you could probably cross that without it, being, I think, too much of an issue. But it's definitely a weird area. It's got to be really defined.
Yeah, I guess the last thing we want to point out is the line that why do I always get his name wrong?
Jane.
Because I just think it's a girl name and it doesn't come to my mind.
Yeah, it's so masculine.
Yeah, Jane. When he said, "That's why I never kissed them on the mouth," like funny.
And then the way everyone just stares at him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny.
There's a lot of like great crew interactions this episode, purely because of the new temporary addition to the crew. There's a lot of interesting and fun crew interactions that we're not going to get through all of them, but I just need to shout out that they're great.
All right. On to our ratings for the episode.
Yes.
I guess I'll go first. I'll do.
Right. Yeah, it's right.
Yeah. 8 objective. 9 subjective.
Yeah, I'll give 8 objective and 7.5 subjective. Sinister.
I'll give this 7.5 overall.
And Sprinks.
6 objective, 7 subjective.
6 subjective.
And I'm just mentally comparing to Lightyear every single time. I'm sorry.
I would probe it more, but we don't have time to probe.
Yeah, sorry everybody, but I will be leaving. But, continue.
Could you give us your rating for the 7th?
Yes, for Jaynestown.
Yes.
I'm gonna do. I think this one might be 6.5.
All right.
And enjoy the rest.
Yeah. Bye, Sinister. We will see you next time. Hopefully.
I'll be missed. All right.
Farewell.
Goodbye. And then there were 3.
So close. Had 1 episode left to get through.
Right now, we're right on track with what I was
for
going for.
Sinister. Yeah.
We're actually perfect where we're supposed to be. So, Sprinks, I'll let you start off this.
Sure. There's a whole. It's not a black market, but there's a whole selling point for mud.
Yeah.
I don't understand, with all the planets they've shown us so far of these deserty, western-looking planets, how people can't make mud anywhere.
I mean, there's all kinds of mud out there.
I genuinely assume that this is for the central planets, like it's a supply for the central planets that they're doing. Because those are the cityscapes or whatever. There's no line of dialogue to support this, but this is just an inference.
Okay, during the whole walk and talk with Simon, I didn't overhear anything that the guy was saying that made this mud special, other than how they treat their workers.
It's cheaper product.
Yeah,
and for clay, you can make ceramic shielding for ships and stuff. There's a lot of applications for mud and space stuff. So I'm fine with it being something to sell in that regards.
Yeah, I do think they should have given a couple lines of dialogue to kind of explain it, but otherwise we're just left to mostly infer.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because mud is an easy resource to accumulate on pretty much any habitable planet. So I would just have to say the only plus they have is that it's a discount item, and any high-end planet probably doesn't have much farmland left. It's probably all just like city stuff. But that is just completely in my head and not.
Yeah, this is us definitely writing for the writers. There's, like I said, there's enough to explain it, but not enough to give a definitive answer.
Do you have anything to point out, Raider?
Sure. Actually, I really like the intro here between Jane and Kaylee. It's more of a relationship building for the two of them. They're arguing over the fact that he doesn't swear.
This is something that Sinister probably would have brought up.
Oh, with Simon, not Jane.
Sorry. Yeah, Simon and Kaylee. I find it funny. It's good relationship building, and it's also a through line for this episode. We get a lot of them as a pairing as this episode.
Sinister that, and I have had this very conversation about cursing, where I always tell my generally only curse when it's necessary, and I hate it when people just curse all the time, every other sentence and all that, because it loses the power of the word.
Yeah, I mean,
when Crimson and I were younger, we knew a guy who would curse pretty much in every single sentence he'd said.
Yeah.
And
it just loses the effect.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the only effect that really comes of it is that person's characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Like, someone who curses all the time, the only way that they can prove like a relevant usage of the word is them screaming it to show that it's actually got meaning now. When someone who doesn't curse says it once, then the crowd goes silent.
Yeah,
because it's just so out there. It's a big situation.
I obviously curse a lot. At least I think I do. I have a potty mouth. But in my writing, my characters rarely curse, so that when they do curse, it's very relevant to the situation.
Yeah, I think the one with the angel lips here is probably Crimson. Out of the cast,
I would say definitely. You and I used to be pretty even, Springs, but you have definitely loosened up through these past few years.
Yeah, I've definitely loosened up. I don't think I'm on the marks of Ryder or Sinister. I believe they're a little more than me, but
yeah.
We agree.
But back to the show.
I do have a good thing about the show. In this episode, out of the 7 episodes, I think the sub stories of Kaylee and Simon, and the story of Book and River are the strongest balanced in this episode.
I can agree with that. I think the sub stories were the best in this episode.
Yeah, because the main plot certainly was not the focus of this. I think this is the worst villain out of the episodes.
Oh, Stitch.
Well, I guess Stitch, but I was talking.
I was going with the mayor, the magistrate. Sorry.
Yeah, the magistrate. Both of them, I guess, sucked. They weren't very good. Definitely wasn't the focus of this episode. It was definitely the side plots with characters. Of course, Jane was funny as usual. Got a
Jane
focused
was Jane,
episode.
Yeah.
Crimson, I think I'm sure you'd point it out if neither Red or I brought it up, but I think you enjoyed the little bit of Egyptian history that's haven't brought up in this episode.
Yes, with the liquid bread.
The mud milk.
Yes. Yeah, I did appreciate it. I think Ryder's also into history stuff, so he probably enjoyed it as well.
Loved it. The mud milk is
it was
great.
good. I just love that everyone is obsessed with Jane.
Yeah, it's great because this is a very, very powerful character thing for Jane, I think, in that like he's totally out of his element until he's drunk. And they tell him that they had a riot on his behalf, and you can actually see him tear up.
You had a riot for me?
Yeah. And then, and then I love it because you could see him questioning everything almost in the next scene.
Am I a hero?
Yeah, it's like maybe this is what we're supposed to be doing. Like, is this which is like, this is a very, 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 very short character journey for him, but I think it does a lot.
I do like that when they get to the planet, Jane's main thought is pretty much on Stitch. And his last encounter here.
Yeah, he's trying to hide himself. He's like disguising himself. He's like, he does not want people to recognize him because he thinks that they would hate him, or he's like, he's done some shit on this planet, and then everyone had built a statue for him, and he's like, what the fuck?
Because the thing he did was steal.
Yeah,
he pulled a job here, and then it's the dumping all the funds that I guess being Jane, which totally works, is he's not the smartest tool. So he probably didn't put much thought into where that money went when he dumped it.
Yeah. I guess I have a bit of a gripe here. How do we feel about Mal throwing Doc into the deep end at the beginning of the episode?
Like leading because of his looks?
I mean, it's leading because of his looks, but they were going to go without him to begin with.
Oh, well.
I have an issue with this purely because job scarcity for them is a thing that they reemphasize in the show, and watching him fumble his way through this, Mal would know that this is not his strong suit by now. So I don't like that Mal throws him in the deep end. I'm fine with the idea of him bringing Doc along as like a sign of good faith that they're good representations of what they want to do. But letting him lead is I don't think he would do that. I thought that was very out of
I'm fine if they showed him like practicing.
Yes.
But we didn't get that. It was literally just like, all right, we need a rich looking dude, you're up.
Yeah, and because they literally just they taken right from the ship to the meeting. That's why I assumed there was no practicing. There was no, you're gonna play this, you're gonna do this. It's just he was thrown in the deep end. He has to bullshit his way through, which is on the one hand.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, which is like on the one hand, I can see a version where Malcolm doing this if he had more, not credibility, but like more ability to control the outcome. But here he doesn't, and I found that was where I took a main problem with it.
Well, I thought it was actually fine.
You found it fine?
I thought it was.
Is it also a problem with Simon? Because he came from a high-end place. He's got an education, so he should be fine talking to people. Should he be a babbling idiot for this? Does that make sense for him?
See, at this point, I would think yes as well, so I can see this as a bit of a problem with him too. Because at this point, he's already talked to shady people to get River out of the fucking prison. So he should, I'm happy, like I said, he should be like out of his depth, but he should be able to pick up cues and stuff very quickly. So like, I'm happy with him being a fish out of water at the start of the conversation, but by the end, he's worked it way back to where he's in control. Because
sorry, I cut you off earlier, Spring. Oh,
yeah.
I'm cutting you off.
No, sorry. I know that's just, I got out what I needed to say. So
I cut you off, Spring. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it was fine because it wasn't Malcolm's idea to bring Simon along. It was Kaylee's. And I believe even without Simon, Malcolm had a plan to already go with and everything, but it was second guessing with what Kaylee said to bring Simon along to help be more of the crew, because it was stated in episode 5. Even though they left, it was kind of Malcolm's priorities to leave the ship and then come back from that. He told Simon, "You are a part of the crew." So help him get more into the groove of things and feeling of how things work on, Malcolm's ship. So I think that was fine. I think Simon bumbling around is a bit off. I think he could have maybe played it safer by not speaking as much as when he did speak and was bumbling. But then it did get to the point where Malcolm did step in to pretty much state what he wanted and, give a pause for Simon to basically retell. So I think that was all fine. I think it also helps Simon. I do agree, Crimson, that Simon should definitely be more, charismatic at times. But ever since looking for River, it did show flashbacks of him kind of losing it with his dad, which I believe went down to his descent of not being so high up and sociable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helps with it, especially with his interactions with Kaylee and how he can be a very smart guy and strategic, but he can't really read a person that well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's true. He is bad at reading people.
Yeah, to clarify, I don't have an issue with him being there, because I do think I agree that Mal would include him as part of the crew, which is refreshing, because Kaylee wants him to learn, what it's like being there. I just don't like that they threw him on essentially one of the harder part of the jobs.
I think the only problem is if Malcolm bled, it would be the difference in outfits. And I guess they could have done something small like, oh, he's the doctor, but then it would bring up why did they bring the doctor along? He could make.
He would still be the representative. Mal could just speak on his behalf. So he's standing there behind him as someone who looks the part, essentially. There's definitely avenues where you can have him there and have him play a less significant role than he does in this scene. Because the idea with him agreeing to bring him along is because he brings credibility. And he doesn't necessarily need the speaker in order to do that.
Okay. I guess so.
Crimson, you got anything? The talking point?
Okay, sure. I can do that. How about the lame fight with Stitch?
Wasn't really a fight.
That would be cool.
It was pretty lame.
Yeah, it should have been a fight.
It was more. What I liked about the fight was more the emotional driving force in the after effect.
Yeah, the bystander getting shot. That's the good part.
Yeah.
I think it did add a little more tension that Stitch was the only one with a firearm, because they stated that they couldn't bring weapons on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that did help build a bit of tension. But still, it was very fast.
Part of not bringing weapons. I didn't bring this up during episode 5. Whatever, the ball. The ball. 4. When they entered the ballroom, there was this security check that scans for weapons, which was
crazy metal detector.
Yeah, I thought that was going to come back up and be relevant, but it wasn't. It was just a world building thing, which was kind of cool to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's like, I guess, on the richer planets. I think it's a cool addition for that as well.
When it comes to Stitch as a character, he's
very one
kind
note.
Of lame.
Very one note.
The makeup is kind of not great either on him.
They never explain how his eye got that way, do they?
Just how he got kicked out of the plane or whatever.
It's implied that he's been stuck in that box for years. So I'm assuming they just, they torture him in that box.
Fell out.
Yeah. I'm assuming they tortured him, because why wouldn't they? He lost a lot of money to the village because of them.
Jace kicked him out of his aircraft, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
it could be from that. It could be
the way he landed. Yeah. It could be torture.
There's
malnutrition,
it's
rats
been-
eating his eye. Who knows?
It's been years. I think there's plenty to excuse it away. It's just.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily need that one to be explained.
Do we all like the Bard song?
Yeah, that's pretty decent.
I think the rhyming did help. It was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, I love that Jane is everyone. I like the crew is just sitting in shocked and awe at the table the entire time.
Can
And
anyone recite any of the lines?
did I write any down? Let's see. No, I wrote down lines for the conversation with the crew, not for the song, unfortunately.
And they called Jane.
Yeah. The hero of Canton, the man they call Jane. I don't remember the way they say it. That's one of the lines. With Anara's little side story here, it wasn't very good either. With her, or with what was his name?
Making the guy a man. Fez.
Yeah,
I
making him a man.
was more okay with it with the ending payoff. Otherwise, for me, I thought it was more just side character building, like seeing Anara just in her normal day job of acting both therapist and virgin killer.
It just felt like fluff filler. It didn't really.
Yeah, the only thing that negates
like anything.
The only thing that retroactively negates that is the fact that the Fess is the reason that their ship wasn't landlocked at the end.
Well, yeah, but that's an easy workaround. They didn't have to go that route. Could have easily just had Kayla fix it or Wash. They didn't need the sun to fix a problem. They could have gone a different avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So it totally could have been cut out. So that was kind of weightless for me. I really like the statue of Jane.
Yes,
It
me
was
too.
very well done. It looked good. I'm curious how they did it. It looked pretty realistic. It had to have been some sort of cast or a really good sculptor.
I'm gonna guess cast because cast would save time and budgetary constraints.
Probably. I do not know. And presumably it's made out of clay. I'm just going to go with that. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone else got much for this?
The ending scene between Mal and Jane, one of my favorite scenes in the whole show.
Jane's guilt over the dead guy?
Yeah. And like him and Mal like having that last conversation like just in the empty hangar or empty cargo bay. I thought it was because Jane is pretty much he's a very gung-ho character. So it's kind of nice to see a bit of growth in that department. Like something happened where an innocent person that loved him got killed on his behalf. And it's nice to see that it affected him. And then Mal goes to comfort him because Mal's been there. He fought in the war. So he knows what that feeling is like. So he has to help him kind of understand his grief, if not help him get through it. And it was very very powerful scene. Very somber, but I like it.
It was good. Just the best parts of the show is Jane. Not entirely true, but I like Jane. He's up there with Malcolm, favorite character, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess I'll actually pose that question. Favorite character, at least in the first half of this show.
Ooh.
We covered episode 1, but now that we're done
Yeah.
with the 7, essentially.
I think Mal barely wins out for me still. Overall, I mean, I really like the just the quick. I love the quick wit and the quick banter that he always has ready to go. Jane is probably a good second though. I like interchanging Jane and the Doctor. I think.
Yeah, I was pretty sure going into this that Malcolm was your favorite. More than 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I never really hid the fact I have a Malcolm T-shirt in my bedroom, so.
Well, I haven't seen that T-shirt.
That's fair.
It's Sprinks, what about you?
All-time favorite character out of the 7 episodes?
Yes.
Malcolm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Stayed consistent through the pilot there.
I'm a sucker for asshole heroes.
we know.
Well, he certainly is one.
Yeah. Meet one of the greatest arbiters of that definition for a character. This episode is where Preacher had the fucking mad hairdo, didn't he?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
by 0.21 gigawatts.
I fucking love his interactions
Yeah,
with
the
River.
Einstein hair.
River's just fucking afraid of him because of it. Like he's like, no, it's too bad. I'm not coming out of this hole.
She was coming back to give him back his Bible papers that she ripped up and ruined. She was trying to grow as a character, and he had to ruin it by shaking up his hair like that.
So great. I loved it.
It's funny. I guess I liked River going through the Bible and saying that doesn't make sense. She's fixing it.
Yeah, I know. That to me, that's always amusing to me, just because. Yeah, I've been there, River. It's had that phase too.
I like that the book stated that it's not supposed. There are parts that aren't supposed to make sense. Rather than trying to correct her, tell her how he interprets it, he just states that there are parts that don't make sense, and it's about faith. And I thought that was very nice to his character.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah. Do I have anything else? Trying to think.
Should we go over least favorite characters?
I'm not sure. Why not? Least favorite. Sprinks, go.
Oh shoot!
You brought it up.
Soon you're ready to go.
I mean, yeah. Does Katrina Hendricks count? Mrs.
No,
Reynolds?
main cast.
Main cast.
Okay, there we go. Shoot, who's my least favorite on the main cast? Probably Zoe.
She probably does have the least amount of character out of the characters. What about you, Raider?
It was between, for personal dislike, it's probably going to be Anara. I don't hate her. Obviously, I think she's a well-written character. That's just personal. I feel like they could do so much more. They could do a lot more with her. And I just feel like in the first half of the show, they kind of squander her a little bit. But objectively, I'm probably going to go with Springs. I would probably put Zoe, just because we don't really get much of her, and everything with her and Wash is very. Her character is pretty much marked by her interactions with Wash, and the same goes for Wash, marked by his interactions with Zoe. They have very, very little to do outside of one another in terms of character stuff.
Mine would probably be Wash. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. It's just rubbed me off the wrong way. I don't know. I don't really care for him that much. Part of it could be Alan Tudyk's face. I don't like his face. I do enjoy him in Night's Tale, so I do like him and stuff, but I don't know. I can't really explain why I don't like Wash that much. I just don't.
Okay.
That's
Just
fair.
not an Alan Tudyk fan. Gotcha.
I guess, like I said, Night's Tale I like him, but I guess it has to be specific circumstances. I guess the last thing I'll bring up in the episode specifically is I liked a couple Simon interactions where he was jealous that all he got was a hamster for saving lives. While Jane gets an entire village to worship him in a statue.
That's pretty fitting.
Yep.
And as well as when he was at the bar and he's like, "Can I see the menu?" And the guy's like, "What?"
No idea what the menu was. That was good.
And then later he asks for the bill when Stitch shows up. It was like, that's pretty funny.
The
He
show
knows
is very good at illustrating where you are, what civilization standards are.
Yeah, I'd say basic world building is very great throughout the show. Like, there's definitely a few missteps, but you understand where you are very quickly just by either lines of dialogue or being shown. It's one of the things I like about the show a lot.
I agree. And Springs usually bring this stuff up, but I'll do it this time. I
Oh.
like the costume design.
Oh.
I think they do a good job in the show with the settings and how everyone's dressed up for them.
Yeah, everything seems
Okay.
fitting for their settings. I will agree with that.
I do like that each character has their own kind of distinct look of what they go through. Like Malcolm always has his suspenders, and Wash has his vest, and they all have like an article of clothing that sticks to them, but the colors change in episodes, so it's not the same outfit.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah, like you can never really tell Simon's clothes. Like
Yeah,
When-
Simon's vest.
when
Always
Jane was
maybe.
going through his stuff earlier in the witch episode,
hmm
he just pulls up a shirt. What did he say? He said something during that part. Shoot, do either of you remember?
No.
No. He did say something. I don't know if he said like I'm in the wrong line of work or something.
I don't know. It's something funny. Darn it. Oh well. I agree. Distinct looking clothes throughout the cast. Identifiable.
hmm
What do you guys think of the VFX for this show?
See,
This is 2002.
yeah, for its time as a show, it's better in some episodes than others. Like the train heist episode, the ships looked great and the train looked great when compared to the first episode when the Alliance was coming down for the bombing of Serenity Valley.
I think that's the worst looking.
Yeah,
VFX in this.
I do think that is the worst VFX in this, and I do think that they quality does improve over time. I think the pilot has the worst VFX.
What do you think, Spring?
I think it fits with the show. I don't think it's off-putting or jarring.
Yeah.
What about with the time? Do you think it's average, above average?
I think it was a little above average for the time. My initial thought, kind of at the start, was the space is silent. Was that they were saving on sound, on
Mhm.
like sound design and everything. But there are parts, especially when they're in planet taking off, that there is noise around. So it's just a editorial world idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, space is
Yes.
supposed to be quiet, so
Yeah, but I mean, you got Star Wars where they're like,
Yeah.
TIE fighter the whole time. So, I
has a
think-
difference. Star Trek's the
Yeah.
same, so
So I think it kind of helps that the silence of space did probably save them a little on noises
that's the name of my
and
book.
sound effects. So
Mhm.
I did like that.
Yeah, I agree. Where I think it's a little above average for the time as well.
I would agree.
And speaking of sound, I don't think I touched on it before when you brought up the music and how it fits in the show.
Mhm.
I think it works very well with anything that's sci-fi looking. So like when the ship's taking off, or like the hologram windows, like anything like science fiction-y looking, and this guitar fits very well for the tone and the look. I think when it's like when they were doing the deal with patience or anything in the desert, it's too Western.
Interesting. So you think the Western music fits better with the sci-fi than the actual Western parts?
I think it fits help the tone of what the show is. Yes.
Would you have preferred sci-fi music over the Western part?
No, I don't think sci-fi, but I think they could definitely get better action for like the shootouts or fights.
I will definitely say one of the things that they were trying to do is they were trying to meld Western into some Chinese sounds, I'm gonna say, for the soundtrack. I remember reading this a long time ago, so I can't quote anything directly. It's definitely experimental soundtrack, which is why I particularly really like it, because I think the music's fitting for both in both cases personally. Though I will happily give it to everyone that there could be better action music, because when the action on screen is subpar, some of the time
They just kind of
the music
speed
could
up the tempo.
yeah
That's about it.
Yeah.
the music could have picked up the pace for what we're seeing on screen.
It did, however, in episode 5, I did like the dance music that River was dancing to.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
At the ball.
No,
No,
not the ball.
no, when she's outside
It's
dancing
Italy.
in the
Yeah,
with the
Oh.
town.
Simon loses her.
Before they got kidnapped.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Good. Well, kind of went on some tangents here.
Yeah.
Are we done with episode 7?
Believe so.
Specifically?
I
All
believe so.
Ratings.
Uh, I gave this one. Originally, it was going to be I was going to give this one a 6, but I think the ending really ties it together. So I adjusted probably 7.5 overall, almost an 8 objectively.
Wow, that really did round it.
Yeah, like I said, character work is what I value the most in my in terms of what I look for. So it shouldn't be a surprise that Firefly is rated fairly high most of the time because character work is fairly excellent typically. Subjectively, this one was an 8.
Yeah, I'm giving this an objective 6.5. Mainly because the side story didn't really add anything and the villains weren't good. Subjectively, I'll give it. I'll go to 7.5 for Jane and Sprinks.
Objectively 8, subjectively 7.
All right.
Fair enough.
I guess since we're all wrapped up, anything you feel like you forgot to bring up during any of the episodes, or just overarching, I guess, point out.
Episode 6, when I forget the character, Mrs. Reynolds or the wife, said to Malcolm that I'm your wife. The 2 extra seconds they gave of Malcolm's face shocked was pretty funny.
Yeah, they just.
Yes.
I love Malcolm's expressions throughout most of the show, but especially.
They gave it a good extra couple seconds.
Yeah, but I wrote that one down as
For
something
comedic.
I enjoyed.
Yeah, and then they come right back to it, and then he's like, "Could you repeat that?" And then he's still holding the same expression. I think it's great. They do a very good job of that.
Yeah. Remind me, what episode was it where they start off with the pool playing billiards?
That was
The
episode
hologram?
2, I believe.
I thought episode 2 was just the brown coat talk, and he gets thrown out the window.
Oh no, that
Episode 4.
was episode 4. You're right.
Episode 4. Okay, I did like Malcolm going up to Nara and saying like, "There's a thief somewhere here, and it's him."
Yeah.
I think that was pretty
That
clever.
was good.
Malcolm, like I said, there's a lot of quotes from Malcolm, just that I've written down because just a very, very quotable character.
One of the reasons why he's my favorite
Yep.
so far, because we're only tackling the first 7 episodes in
Halfway
this.
there, and then a movie.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, if we do get to the movie.
Yeah. It won't be part of next part.
Yeah.
No,
Maybe
next
will
part
be
will
its own
be
thing if we get to it.
Yeah.
episodes 8 through 14.
Probably
Yeah.
will. Ryder, did you have anything else?
No, I believe that is it for me.
Okay, I'm pretty well wrapped as well.
All
So
right.
if you want to
I'll
take it away.
I will. All right. So once again, thank you all for coming to Cheap Seat Critics, this regular podcast that we do, and we love talking about movies and shows. But as always, you can find us on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Amazon, Castbox, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. As always, I have been a geeky writer.
And Crimson Maroon.
And I'm
There.
Sprinks.
And there was a Sinister Boy.
And there was a Sinister
Yeah.
Boy. Don't worry, he's been replaced by Malcolm.
gosh.
And
My ending.
and
Now you can do your ending. I'm sorry.
Well, I just a little thing to throw in. Well, I'm Sprinks. There we go. Nice clean cut. But if we did go through each episode kind of fairly fast with ratings and not an overall rating of the entire season will be brought up in part 2 when we cover it. But if you have anything to comment or argue against with any of us in our ratings, please leave them in comments below, and we will more than likely tackle them in the recaps.
yeah, please do.
Yeah, we obviously missed a lot.
Yeah, we had
kind of sped ran it. So.
yeah. See you next time, everybody. Later.
Bye.
Toodaloo.